Welcome to episode number 10 of Winning Ways by the Washington State Football Coaches Association. And our guest today is Rory Rosenbach. And if you're a high school football fan, you know that name around here. Maybe back from his playing days, maybe from his coaching days. He is a graduate of Snohomish High School in 1988. He was an Allstate tight end there. And from there, he went on to Air Force Academy, played a couple years there. Then he ended up transferring to Oregon, finished up as a Duck, which may lose some followers here in this state, but still pretty cool to go down to Oregon. Started his coaching career down there after that. From what I hear, wasn't necessarily planning on getting into coaching, but maybe some dental work or business and things like that. And then some people, clients that he was working with, had kids that played at Marist Catholic down there in Oregon, and he got on as an assistant there. Within a couple of years, he was the defensive coordinator, won a state championship as the DC in 2003, and then pretty quickly turned that into a head coaching gig. Was there for 3 years and won 2 state titles there at Marist, and that was 05 and 07. And then the opportunity showed up, and opportunities are where I think that shows up a lot in Coach Rosenbach's life and history. Opportunity showed up to come back home, and a brand new high school is being built. Glacier Peak High School, right there in his own backyard, right in the district where he grew up playing. And he had a chance to build something there from the ground up, and spent 8 years as the first and only head coach at that point in time for Glacier Peak High School. While he was there, he won about 70% of his games there, won 4 league titles, and took the team to the semis a couple times, and looked like probably that's where he was going to be for a long time. And then opportunity happened again, and he got the call to be not just the head football coach, but head football coach and athletic director at Union High School, another fairly new school. And he had a daughter down there in Portland that was close down there that he thought, opportunity. I'm gonna get a great opportunity to go coach and be an AD and be near my daughter. So probably thought he'd never leave Glacier Peak, and then that happened, and so he was at Union, won a state championship there in his 3rd year, 14-0. In 2018, and 47-22 was his time there. And then another opportunity happened a few years later, and Glacier Peak called back, and there was an opportunity to come back home one more time as the athletic director at Glacier Peak. And altogether in his coaching career, 137 wins, 53 losses, 72.1% winning percentage, 3 state titles. In 19 years, only 2 losing seasons. Those were just like 4 and 5 by 1 game, right? And so all kinds of success. I personally got to know Coach Rosenbach as he was a local guy around here as I was coaching the game, and he would come to our passing tournaments, and always was a favorite there, and just so easy to get along with, so good-natured, and his teams are so competitive all the time. So that's a little bit about Coach Rosenbach's background and some of his accomplishments that led him up to this point. Coach, is there anything I missed that you'd like to add on your bio there?
Well, no, I just want to say that I was a 1994 grad. I'm just turned 50 a couple weeks ago, so let's not make me 56 just yet. But
okay. Well, I was hoping.
I was like, man, that's great. I didn't know most of that stuff. Half I either forgot or didn't know about. But yeah, no, 88. Come on, don't make me older than I need to be yet.
Well, I am saying the closer you get to 56, the more you might forget some of those things. So take that by you.
I think that's what probably happened. That's why I forgot some of the stuff you were talking about, because I just turned 50. But yeah,
right.
It's been a fun run.
That's awesome. So I'm going to start out there playing high school football. Did you play for the legend Dick Armstrong?
I did. I was very fortunate. I think you coached a long time, and I'm sure you had players and parents that, maybe didn't invite you over for Sunday dinner. But you had some that did love you, and that were grateful for what you did for their kid and for their family and for the community, all that kind of stuff. And I think I was on that side of the fence with Coach Armstrong. I think he was old school. He could be abrasive. He could be rough. He wasn't always the kindest and gentlest man, but that was what was in his heart. And I was fortunate to get to know him in that respect, especially after I was a player. That was when I really kind of came to appreciate all of the little idiosyncrasies and the things that made him go and that made him who he was. And, I'm truly grateful for that opportunity that I got to play for him and the rest of that staff, which, by the way, included Gilby and Lucero and Perry Stangvik and, Mark Perry and Albertine. And I mean, just the kind of a who's who. And in the history of Snohomish football and Snohomish sports. And so that was a really great experience. And then getting to know him as a man, as an adult, right, when I'm in college. And I went out to his place in Concrete and helped him work on some things, and just got to know him. He invited me to take me to lunch, and we'd roll in, and Cliff Gillies would walk in, and just Keith Gilbertson Jr. would walk in, and just different guys. And it was a lot of fun to get to know him and get to know them and watch how they kind of handle their business.
Yeah, and for those that may not know, Coach Armstrong was the winningest coach in state history with his 279 wins. He won a couple of state titles. The field was named after him there at Snohomish, and they even put a statue up of him in the town, right? So, I mean, legendary. And eventually, Coach Sid Otten broke his record for most wins. And I had a small connection. You mentioned Concrete, and he had a family up there along the Skagit River. I taught for 9 years at Cedar Woolley High School and helped out with football there for a little while before I ended up at Lakewood. And Tig Howland, who ended up going down to Portland State as a quarterback and became one of the ADs at Portland State, that was his grandson. And I was an interim co-head football coach his senior year. And so he had some good stories, and he was a TA for me as well. So he had some stories about Grandpa Dick Armstrong that I'm sure he saw different sides, because from everything I hear, pretty rough and gruff on the field, but off the field had a golden heart there. So, yeah.
Oh shoot! I went and worked for him up at the place in Concrete, and we must have had 7 or 8 breaks. I thought it was a county gig, man. He just every 15 minutes, he's like, "Hey, we got to get some lemonade," or she just made us some sandwiches. I'm like, I haven't even done anything, and we're taking another break already. It was great. We had a good time. It was fun.
Not quite what you remembered on the football
field. That's no, there was not. There was no water. There was no water on the sidelines.
Right, absolutely.
There was no water on the sidelines.
Yeah. Is there anything that you took from playing for him and or his staff, Gilby and all those guys, that you incorporated into your coaching over the years?
Oh man, we don't have enough time scheduled.
Yeah.
Gosh, I think the thing, and it's because of Dick, but it was my position coach Perry Stangvik, who was our tight end coach and coached with Coach Armstrong and those guys for 30 plus years. Was the only guy I knew that wore like a snowsuit every day of the year, like he's in a parka and a hood on. Anyway, I just remember one day I was trying to help one of our guys. I was a senior. I was trying to help one of our guys. Like I felt like I understood kind of the concept of what we were to play or whatever it was we were trying to do, and this kid didn't. And I was trying to help him, and Coach walked up to me and took his hat off, which was better than his clipboard, so that was good. And he just hit me across the helmet with it. And you get the metal bead on top of the hat, so it makes the loud noise. And he looks at me and says, "You want this?" And he hands me his hat. And I was confused. I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Do you want to be coach?" I was like, "No, not at all." Well, then keep your mouth shut.
Right.
And I just remember getting so frustrated, and I was so mad, and just kind of stomped off, dejected teenage boy, and Coach Stangvik walked up to me and just said, "Hey, don't get your dauber down." That was his favorite thing to say. "Don't get your dauber down." I said, "He's always riding me. He's always yelling at me. He hates me. He's mad at me." All the different things that we go through as players and that relationship with the coach. And he said, "Rory, don't get frustrated when they're on you. Don't get frustrated when they're chewing on you. Because here's what it means. It means that they're watching you. It means that they're looking at you, and they feel like they know what you're capable of. And if you didn't do something that they thought was up to your standard, then they were letting you know about it." He said, "You get frustrated and get mad when they stop talking to you and they stop chewing on you, because it means they've either given up or they're not watching. They don't expect more from you. They don't think you can do it any better than you just did it, which was clearly not very good." So that for me, that was a thing that I didn't really think about at the time, but I've come back to it so many times as a coach. And I've told so many kids, and I've had kids bring it up to me and say, I remember when you told me that, and it really meant something. Like you get frustrated and concerned when they stop talking, when they stop coaching you, when they stop constructively criticizing you, like say, "Hey, you're capable of this. You can do this better. This technique can be perfected, and you're not there yet," because they see the value that you could bring to the group. And when they stop doing that, that's when you kind of get nervous a little bit. So I thought that was pretty powerful. It's impacted me, and I've kind of taken it with me in my coaching journey as well. So
yeah, great advice. They have to just know that we're watching because we care about them. We see more in them, and it impacted you, not just the clipboard or the hat, but I found the metal whistles; those made a good ring in the helmet.
Those will make a noise too. You got it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about going to Air Force, getting to be a starter there for a couple of years, and what that experience was like. Being part of one of the military academies, and then there was a time when you had to go then serve for a little bit of time, but you got out of that somehow, maybe as you transferred to Oregon, and I hear that there was injuries, so you didn't really get a chance to get on the field while at Oregon. But tell me about the experience at Air Force and then transferring to Oregon, and what that process was like, and if you had to do it again, would you still make that move?
So we'll start with that part. I think, gosh, you're just getting into the good stuff. I wouldn't do anything different. I wouldn't. I love my life. I'm blessed. The good Lord has taken tremendous care of me in my journey, and everything that has happened to me has happened for the reason that He needed to happen for. And I don't know all those reasons, but that's good. I'm good with them. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't change anything, because I wouldn't be sitting here where I'm on the east side this weekend, just kind of buttoning up our little place in Orondo for the winter, getting everything, winterized and everything. And I got these two beautiful little girls in front of me and married to a wonderful woman. So I wouldn't have that. I just wouldn't. I know that I wouldn't, because my life would have been so different. And the circumstances that led me to be here are where I was supposed to be. So I wouldn't change anything. No. Are there things that did I make some choices that maybe weren't the greatest choices? Yeah, they were, but we have all done that as young people, and that's okay. And we're supposed to screw up and then grow and learn. And I mean, I think the most important thing is that like, when we screw up, we got to feel there needs to be a little bit of consequence, and we need to feel that. And I think that's important. I think we've lost some of that today a little bit, and we want to protect everybody and everything from every little boo-boo and owie and criticism. And that's not good. I think it's good to have hard times. Hard times make strong people. And, I've had a few of them, and I think it made me stronger. So getting back to it, I wouldn't change it. But going to the academy, it was funny. that wasn't really on my radar. It's funny. I actually signed with Washington State University. And I really, it's funny. I grew up a Husky fan, as a lot of people did in those late 80s, early 90s dominant times with Entman and the defense, and, the Hobarts and the Brunells and the, Beano Bryant and Kaufman and all those guys, right? It's just like the whole crew is just fun to watch. Palcoa boys. It's hard to not be a Husky fan, right? And so I didn't, I ended up, I'm being recruited by them, and they signed 3 tight ends the year before me, and Cam Cleland and Conwell, and I can't remember that. Was it maybe Jolly was his name? Anyway, they signed 3 tight ends. They're really, really talented dudes. Obviously, a couple of them played in the NFL for a long time. And they're like, well, I don't know that we're going to take that. And you're on our linebacker board, but you're here, and we got our top 2 guys. So, whatever happens. And it's like, well, okay. So you go on your trips, and you look at your opportunities, and you weigh stuff out. And I really had I just felt a bit of a connection to people and community in Pullman on my different ventures. And so I actually signed with Washington State. I was going to be a Coug. And it's funny. I still am. I still always root for those. I always root for the Cougs, man. I just do. And at any rate, the one thing that I didn't really know about the academies is at the time is they can continue to recruit you after National Letter of Intent Day, because you're not really on a scholarship, right? You've earned a nomination to an institution, and so it has nothing to do with the scholarship piece of it. So I signed with Washington State, and I will still say this to this day: there are 3 men that I have kept in contact with that were college coaches or people that recruited me. One is Jim Grobe, who was the guy that recruited me to the Air Force Academy. The other was Bill Doba, mm-hmm. who was the guy that recruited me to Washington State, and later became the head coach and whatnot. And the other is Steve Greatwood, who's the gentleman who recruited me at Oregon, and then was gone for a while. And he was gone when I went back, and I didn't get to be around him, and that was unfortunate. But we've stayed in contact over the years, and so those 3 guys were kind of, I just respected them. I trusted them. I believed in them. I thought they were just great men of faith and character, and I just really appreciated them. And so anyway, so Jim Grobe at the academy, he continues to recruit. He's come out to baseball games. We're doing our things. And there were some guys, a guy named Brad Utt, who was at Woodinville, was a really good football player at Woodinville, ended up going to the academy and then leaving and going to UW and starting at center for him. And then our kicker at Snohomish also signed with the academy. So those guys kind of just were like, hey, what you should still think about the academy, do the academy. And so long story short, I made the decision that I want to go to the academy. And for flying wasn't a thing that was really a big deal to me. My dad flew and he loved being a pilot. That wasn't something that was super on my deal. As I got there and learned more about it, it became something I really was passionate about. But so I just was there for 3 years. Honestly, that first year, I hated it. I really was like, you got to get me out of here. I would be like, no, I did not. I got to go down to the field house for football and getting yelled at 5 a.m, 6 a.m. There's a guy, not Oswald G. Medley Jr. from Sarasota, Florida. He was just dark, ashy gentleman, tall and skinny, and had this really deep voice and the dark eyes. And I mean, I just knew when the knock on the door at like 5:59 came every morning, my freshman at the academy, I knew that it was going to be Oswald G. Medley Jr. from Sarasota, Florida. He was ready to get after me. And at first I didn't like him at all. I did not like him at all. I thought he was a mean person. I'm like, why are you picking on me? But he wasn't. He just like, no, I'm not going to let you just be that stereotypical athlete, just turd in the classroom, in the community. No, you don't get to do that. There's a standard and we're going to hold the standard. And so as I got older, I told him at graduation, like, I respect what you did. And I was grateful for what you did. But at the time I was not grateful for it. I wanted to punch you or throw you out the window, one of the two. Right.
Yeah.
But it was an experience and I didn't like it. I wanted to go home and I was so mad at my dad. My dad said, I called one night and I'm like, I'm coming home. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. And on freshman year for me, honestly, the first semester was cool because we traveled. Like I made the travel squad as a freshman. Mm-hmm. So you're gone. I'm going to Northwestern. I'm going down to Texas. I'm going where you're just gone. And by the time I got back, I'd have crew rest. And so then it was Sunday night and it was study hall time. And so nobody would mess with you. And so then it would just be kind of just that Monday through Friday. And really for me, it was morning and night. And I know I'm talking a lot right now, but I'm kind of reminiscent. I don't talk about this very much. Yeah. And so that first semester was not that bad because I was gone most of the weekends and I was, playing and whatever. And we had training table for lunch. So honestly, the only meal that I ate with our squad and they really kind of got after me on was breakfast. And so it's just, I had a little bit easier experience and then football got over and then it got real. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh, we're going to make up for some lost time with you. And so I was like, I got to get out of here. What am I doing this for? And my dad said, you can come home or you can leave, but you're not coming home. Right. And at first I was like, what are you talking about? I can't come back to the house. But he knew, you start quitting stuff. You start, what it is. You start quitting stuff. It gets easier and easier. And you at least need to get through the hard part, right? Just get through the hard part. Don't quit because it's too hard. Quit because it's not what you want to do, or stop doing something because you've been through the whole process and you know what it is. Mm-hmm. And if it's not for you, it's not for you, right? There's a lot of things that aren't for people, and that's fine. But don't give up on them because they're hard. Give up on them because you saw it through and you said, you know what, I'm gonna invest my energy and time in something else or whatever. So again, grateful for that, but angry at the time, and then did it for a couple of years and had a really good junior year. Thought I had some opportunities. Got in a little bit of trouble, but nothing that really would have been a big deal or should have been a big deal. But it was one of those things that, I as we make a character stand and say, no, I believe this, and they didn't necessarily believe that. So they were real happy with me, but would have been fine. But I had a really good year. Thought I had a chance to go continue to play, and it was during the time, like you said, when you did go serve, which is I have no problem with. I knew that going in, but as you said, I didn't have to, and so that worked out. They gave me the waiver and allowed me to leave without having a commitment, because I would have been a commitment as an enlisted person. When you leave before you become an officer. So in that regard, if I could tell my when you say, would you do it again? Yeah, clearly I probably made a poor decision. I go back to the academy, 8 years ago, and my buddies are 41, 42. And they're like, yeah, I just retired and I'm just doing this now. And yeah, of course, those things are financially and professionally and all those things. Was it the wisest choice at the time? Maybe not, probably not, but I'm good. Like I said, every choice we've all made has led us to the place we're at now, and I'm grateful for where I'm at now. And so you take those lumps on the, or those, shots to the chin every once in a while to get to the good stuff. So we ended up leaving the academy and decided to transfer down to Eugene. And was having a ton of fun there. Was living with Jason Moss. It was he and Akili Smith were the two quarterbacks, and they split time that junior year. When I had to redshirt, I'd never redshirted, so I'd played 3, so I redshirted that first year, and I ended up hurting at the end. So I just practiced. It was funny. I'd never. This was the deal. Is I didn't get to start playing with them until roster expansion, because I said, you're redshirt and there's no sense in bringing you in. We're going to wait till the roster expansion to 106, which is when school started, which was the end of September. So I got down there for a couple of weeks and just hung out and got to know the guys and did all this stuff. But I didn't go through that first fall camp. And but then when you start practicing, they're like, they know you can't play. Well, I'm a 21-year-old, 255-pound tight end. Mm. And when you get to college, the first guys that get injured when they're freshmen are usually the offensive linemen.
Right.
Because they're big boys that may or may not have the muscle or the strength or whatever to really control their body.
Yep.
So we probably had 5 or 6 guys get injured, that were young guys. And you get to about week 8 and they're like, hey, we're going to need you to play guard this week. What? I got to play guard? Wait, but you know what? It was a ton of fun. Actually, looking back on my playing career, I wish I'd have been like, somebody should have been smart enough to say, hey, you're pretty athletic for a lineman.
Right.
You're not athletic for a tight end. Like I was too slow, and I could block and I could catch, but I was just too slow to do anything. They should have just probably said, maybe be a center, and you can get away with being 290, and I'd have been super athletic, and who knows what would happen. But again, like you said, you grateful for where you are. So that was kind of an interesting experience. I played a bunch of different positions that year because as a scout team guy, ended up playing fullback a couple of weeks and played DN 1 week because we had another guy injured. So, I just moved around, did a bunch of stuff. At the very end of the year, our bowl prep, I ended up injured my shoulder, blew my bicep tendon, popped it off. And the guy's like, did you get in a car accident? I said, no, I got in a football accident is what it was. Might as well have been a car accident. And so that was the one injury. And then I healed up from that, and then got into the spring stuff. And I literally been cleared for about a week for full go. And then I tore my Achilles. So, and it was at that point, you're like, you know what? Maybe I should just, whatever. I probably shouldn't have. It would have been, again, it's one of those things where you say, I probably should have kept playing. I tell all my kids, like, no, end it on your terms. Don't end it on the terms that are handed down to you. So, right. It is what it is. Like I said, I'm grateful for where I am, but yeah, I had those 2 injuries, and it was just like, I'm graduated. I don't really need, I was done. It was that spring. I had 1 summer class to take and I was done. And, so I decided to kind of hang it up and move on. And what I thought was moving on at that time was maybe looking into some post-grad school. I'd met my wife, Mandy, my first wife, Mandy, and her dad was a dentist, and I was getting into the dental industry and understanding that, and thought about going to dental school and stuff. So I looked at other things, and decided that football was time to be done with football and be a grown up and get a job. And never even thought about coaching. It wasn't something I even considered. It was weird, just funny, because I can't see myself doing anything else. But it was a good run, and I had a lot of fun, and I feel it some mornings when I get out of bed and my shoulders are hurting. But other than that, man, the lessons and the friends are something I wouldn't trade for anything.
Well, I love the attitude too of, maybe some of the decisions I made, maybe they weren't the best decision at the time. Maybe they weren't the wisest or whatever, but understanding, that all happened for a purpose. God had a plan for me. I wouldn't have any of the stuff I have now, the relationships I have now, the family I have now, like all that comes about because of the decisions you made. Right. And so that's the other thing that I think is really freeing in life is when you know what, even if I don't always make the right decision, I can still make the decision right later, right? Like I can make the most of that. And such a freeing thing to understand that. So anyway, you weren't planning on going to coaching, helping out with the, father-in-law's business and all those kind of things, and connected with some people that had kids going through Marist, the Catholic school down there. And they roped you into coaching. And so you were an assistant for several years, became the DC. Tell me how long before you became the D coordinator, which as a tight end, so other side of the ball. And I've always known you as kind of the offensive guru, but you were running the defense, and then how that transitioned into your first head job at a pretty prestigious school at a young age.
Yeah. So okay. So to take one more step back, so we were done, and I graduated, and Mandy, we knew we were going to move down to Arizona. So we ended up moving to Arizona in 1999, and so it's fall of '98. We were finishing up some stuff, getting ready to leave, and a buddy was like, "Hey, my kid's in the 8th grade, and they need somebody to help coach. Would you do that?" And I was like, I don't have time for that. I'm trying to get my life going. And so anyway, so I went out and watched one day, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll help you. Let's go with that." You watch, and you're like, "Yeah, no, that's not right. That's not. You cannot do it like that." Fun part was that group of guys ended up being, most of them ended up going to Sheldon, and they were probably the group that made Sheldon High School, which, if you know anything about Oregon football, they're one of the perennial powers in their top division. So that group kind of put them on the map. Also, that was a group that were seniors when I got back to Marist as a coach. So anyway, it's kind of like full circle. It's fun to be on the other side of well, it wasn't fun because they kicked our tail, but they were across the field. So that was fun to see those guys. So I ended up coaching this middle school team. And I'm like, man, this is really fun. I kind of liked it. Got down to Arizona, and I was still going to school, and had actually reached out to some high school chaperones, some different places, and was looking at getting into it. That was kind of fun. Maybe I'll just help out while I'm doing whatever. Well, then an opportunity came to come back to Eugene, and it was a sales gig for this dental company that was, and I was still looking at going to dental school, but I was like, this was an established gig, so it was a lot of money. Like, it took me a long time in education to get back to that amount. I'll tell you that. I took a pay cut for like 15 years after I quit that job. So we moved back to Eugene, and my wife had gone to Marist. Mandy had gone to Marist. So she was there. Well, her name was Molly Von Oppen, actually. So Fred Von Oppen, if you know that name, he was a college coach for a long time, was a head coach of Hawaii. And so she was back, and she was visiting, went back to see Molly. And there was they just hired this guy to be the head coach at Marist. His name's Mike Allison. And he said, "Yeah, I'm looking for some coaches. If your husband's interested, let's set up a meeting." So whatever, she gave him my number. We set up, and as soon as I walked into the room, I'm like, "Gosh, I feel like I know this guy. I've met him before. I've seen him before." And later on, found out he was feeling the same way. And what we realized was when I was a high school senior on my recruiting trip at Oregon, he was a GA at Oregon, had just finished playing, so he was one of the guys that kind of helped with our visit and stuff. So I was like, "Gosh, I remember this guy." And so then we started talking about that, and we figured out where that came from. And he hired me to be the JV offensive line coach. And about a week and a half into practice, he said, actually, no, we weren't even into doubles yet. It was like we had started meeting like August 1st. Mm-hmm. And it was about a week and a half in. He's like, "I think I'm gonna have you be the varsity line coach," which didn't mean I knew a lot. It meant that the other people he had hired knew less than me. So I was like, "Cool, yeah, whatever, let's do it." So we did that for a couple of years. And Mike was calling the defense. He played linebacker at Oregon, and so he was the defensive guy, and I was helping out with the offense. And so in 2000 and 2001, we had two different offensive coordinators. Chris Miller was our offensive coordinator in 2001. That was a lot of fun. I learned a ton from him. And then he became the head coach of South. And so then Mike took the offense over in 2002. So I'd been there 2 years as the O-line coach, kind of tight end coach, because we had about 3 coaches on the whole staff, And we had done well. We made the quarters both years, but we just I don't know how you feel as a head coach, but for me, unless you have a ringer as an offensive coordinator, the head coach kind of needs to be in charge of the offense, because I feel like that's what the public perception of your program is, right? I mean, nobody talks about Bellevue's defense, even though it was smothering and suffocating. It's the offense, right? And I'm going to tell you right now, if we could have figured out their defense, we'd have beat them several times, but we couldn't. It was the offense. We figured the offense out. We couldn't score on them. Yeah. So Mike made that decision, like, "Hey, I need to be the head coach or be the offensive coordinator," which was cool. And he had learned a ton from Chris too. And so we took a bunch of that stuff. And he's like, "Would you be the D coordinator?" So I said, "Absolutely. Yeah, sure. It'd be fun. I've never done it before." And to be honest, I'm sure maybe you can relate. Maybe you can't. Like, I was kind of terrified because I didn't know really anything about the back end at all. Like, The front end's easy. It's like a puzzle. You just fill the gaps and you're like, okay, here's how many gaps. Everybody's got one of them.
Yep.
And, but we did it. It was great. And actually I had a guy that we hired that just got done in Oregon named Gary McGraw, who I think he's at Tulsa now. I think he's the DC at Tulsa, or he's either the pass game coordinator on the defense or he's the DC at Tulsa. But he was a young guy. And so he and I worked really well together. That was a ton of fun. I learned a bunch from him. I honestly, I think he probably learned stuff from me too, because he knew nothing about the front end. Mm-hmm. So we did that for 2 years. In 2002, we lost to Sisters in the quarters. It was ugly. They beat us by a bunch at our place. And then in 2003, we finally got past that hump of the quarters and ended up winning it. And like funny story. So I'm the D coordinator there. I'm working for Patterson. We have this regional meeting. And again, so I got the gig because of Mike. But once I got there, I realized, oh, I have 3 or 4 clients whose kids play for this program. Okay. And so those relationships obviously became pretty strong, and we did some really good work. And then we make the state championship. And I got to be in California at this event. And the last day of the event, which is like 3 hours, you get up, you have breakfast, and then all the big wigs kind of get up there and give their rah-rah speech, and General Patton go to work. And I'm like, guys, okay, here, I got this thing. I had a guy with one of the people from Marist had a private plane. They're like, we're going to fly down, pick you up, fly you back. You go to the game. The game was at Otson. We were right in Eugene. It was super easy. I was like, you're going to fly me back for a high school game? I can just I can just change my flight and be there. But needless to say, so you go to the bosses and you say, hey guys, we're in this game. Literally like 40% of my gross revenue is from these clients. Like they trust me implicitly. Relationships are strong. Yeah. It makes good business sense. Like, you should let me go to this. And they're like, Rory, you need to pick between your career and your hobby.
Right.
And that was really, I was like, are you kidding me? I couldn't get why they didn't get it. Like, not even like being a selfish kid at the time saying, let me go coach. Mm-hmm. It was, guys, like half of my business is from this. And right. and trust me, like it will continue. I mean, it'll roll over. Mm-hmm. See, it was the only private school in Eugene. Like, that's where people with some affluence sent their kids a lot of times. Either some affluence or they were hardcore Catholics, right? That was it. And so they were like, you need to choose between your hobby and your career. So I said, okay. So I catch the flight. I get back to the game with like 3 minutes left in the game. We rolled them. It was awesome. It was a fun game. Ton of respect for Wilsonville High School and that coaching staff, and those guys did a great job. But we were pretty talented and had a really good plan. So we win it. Mike ends up getting the job at Gresham High School, public school high school. Because at the time, I know you're down at Kings now. They're paying the big bucks down there. But at the time, Marist wasn't paying very much. I'm like, I think my first teaching paycheck, teaching and coaching, I think it was like $27,000 for like the whole year, all in. And I got to live for free at the residence, which was awesome, which is where the Marist brothers used to live. It was like a big dormitory. It was me and a priest. Mm-hmm. That was it. And so I did that. So Mike leaves, whatever, he's gone. And I ended up going, I wanted to do something different. And a buddy of mine, Justin Stark, was the head coach at Thurston. He's turned that program into a kind of perennial power in the 5A down there. And he said, hey, will you come coach? And I said, sure. He said, can you coach quarterbacks? And I'm like, who's coaching them for you right now? And it was Jeff Schmidt, who played D-line in Oregon. I'm like, well, if you got Jeff doing it, I'm pretty sure I can do it, because at least I was on the right side of the ball.
Right.
So he hired me, and I coached quarterbacks, and man, he and I yelled at each other the whole season. He put me up in the booth, and that was back. So if you ever been down to 4J, most of the high schools don't have like press boxes and like stuff. They have a good bleacher setup, but they literally put people in the high lifts and just put you up in the high lifts. So it was like me, Jeff Schmidt, who is now on the defensive side, is like 300 pounds, and who is terrified of heights, by the way. And then the camera guy's in the middle. So there's the three of us up on this lift, and the wind gets going, and you're just doing this, and Jeff's yelling, put the thing down. I'm like, no, I can't see. Leave it up. And then Justin would run all goes 4 times in a row, and I would get mad at him. I'm like, you can't do that. You need to at least sub the receivers. They just ran 3 60-yard sprints in a row.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was a lot of fun. I learned a ton. And they hired a guy at Marist who I actually really believed in as the head coach. I thought he would do a good job. But he was a little more rural than they were used to, a little more small town. I just don't think it was a great fit. And so anyway, he lasted 1 year. And I had actually been applying for some GA jobs at the time. Because I took my boss's advice and I said, I need to think about what my hobby or my career is going to be. And I decided that my career was going to be football and not dental stuff. That would be a hobby. So I've been looking at some different stuff and applied for a GA job. And the last one, it was funny. Great Wood's the one that called me on it. He called me, I think it was a Tuesday. He called me, it was Tuesday morning, and he called me and said, "Hey, bro, I just want to let you know, you're a finalist for this, but you're not going to get it. It's not going to happen." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, you're not going to get it. Why not? Well, because the dude that's applying is Dick Buckus's nephew or whatever he was. I think it was his nephew. And he had just got done playing center at Illinois. He was an all-conference center. And he was really good. And at the time, the GA job at Oregon was basically an assistant O-line coach. Like that was Greatwood's guy. And Greatwood was back then. So he said, "You're not getting it, man. I'm just like, I'll go to battle for you. But to be honest, like, he's pretty good." Like, I'm like, obviously, I think, yeah, okay. Sometimes we lose. And if you lose to that dude, okay. Who I think has gone on to be an NFL offensive line coach. So anyway, so I didn't get the gig. And then like an hour later, like I was like dejected. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'd written all these letters and sent it out to people and hadn't gotten anything back. And then I got a call from the athletic director at Marist. And he said, "Hey, we let so-and-so go and would you be interested in the job?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm not sure." And he's like, "Just meet with the principal. We hired a new principal. I think he gets it. Just come have breakfast with him." So we met at like the IHOP right off of I-5 right there. And that was the next day. Like that was Tuesday. Like the next day we had breakfast. And it really wasn't an interview. It would be like if me and you just went and had breakfast somewhere and started talking. And about an hour later, he's like, "So when can you start?" And I'm just like, "What are you talking about? We haven't talked about anything really. We've just talked." But for whatever reason, he felt like would have been a good fit. So he hired me. I didn't have a teaching degree. I'd never done any of that. He said, "That's fine. Just get in a program. You teach PE. We'll get you rolling." So he hires me. I try to put a staff together. So that was 2005. So whatever, if you're looking at timelines, I mean, this went really long, sorry, but we're looking at timelines. And it was, I got hired in 2000, was the O-line coach for 2 years. 2002, 2003, I was the D coordinator, which was a ton of fun for me. Cause I really learned like, this is how they try to stop an offense, and this is the tricks they play. And which, by the way, calling the defense is so much easier and more fun. You just I just dictate terms. Let's go. We're going to bring it, and I'm going to speed you up or I'm going to slow you down, whatever that is. So anyway, so you do that for 2 years. I leave for a year, go on the offensive side of the ball. Had no business coaching quarterbacks, but did a bunch. Just you do a bunch of research. You read books, you learn, you watch videos. Wish we had YouTube like this, like we do now, but learned a bunch and did that. And then 2003, and then that was 2004. And then 2005, they asked me to come back, and I thought interview for the head job, but I don't really know what the interview was, but they hired me. And so then I tried to find a staff, and we got it rolling. And so I got a lot of those Oregon guys back, which was really fun and good. And actually that was in 2004 is when I met Kai Smalley, who he's D coordinator at Snohomish right now. I'd been the head coach of Snohomish. So he was a D lineman at Oregon. His claim to fame was he kept Haloti Ngata on the bench for 7 weeks as a senior. And then they said, "No, we're going to let the good player play now." And so we got to know each other really well. We coached together at Thurston. He was a D line coach. He was super young, 23. And we were up in the booth together. And so we would talk throughout the game, and we got to know each other.
No scissors lift at that time?
No. Springfield Thurston had a box. That was great. It was when you had to go to the 4J schools, you're in the scissor lift. It was awful.
I had to do that for a few years at Mount Vernon, 7 years an assistant there, and I was usually up in the lift myself.
No,
I know all about it. The windy nights, a little sketchy.
No, September's great. Late October, no fun anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we did that. So I got to know Kai. I said, "Would you come be the D coordinator?" And he was terrified. I said, "No, I got stuff. We use all Mike's stuff." What we did, I just took Mike's defense and made it mine. And then we kind of did that with Kai. And then by year 2, he started feeling like he could add a few things here and there, and it became his defense, and that's kind of how it works. So, yeah. So the timeline: 2 years O-line, and then 2 years DC, and then 1 year as a quarterbacks coach at Thurston High School with Justin, and then transferred to Marist. I transferred to Marist. I went in the portal and did my 40% thing. No, I went and did that. So it's good.
Yeah. All right. So you go to Marist, head coach there 3 years. You win 2 state titles, and you could potentially be set up there to just be the winningest coach in Oregon history, taking over at a young age, and who knows how many titles and all those things. And yet there's a call that comes from Glacier Peak, this brand new high school that's being built in Snohomish County, in Snohomish School District, right where you grew up. Mom and dad still living in the same place you grew up in, and you get to build a program. So tell me about that decision to go, and was that a hard decision or not? I'm guessing no, with the opportunities that were there. And tell me about building a program. Did you have a say in like the logos and the colors and all that? And so tell me about getting the chance to start a program from scratch and then being the guy there for 8 years.
So I think my 3 years at Marist were fantastic. My boss was amazing. He got it. He understood the value of athletics in high schools. He understood the value of football in the fall, kind of being that thing. And you've done this for a long time. You know how it is. It's and right or wrong, people can get mad about it, whatever. It just is a fact. If the football team has a really good year and those kids are good kids and they're being led by a great man, and I'm not saying I'm a great man, I was pointing at you actually when I did that. But if the program does the right things, like they handle themselves and they're good kids in the classroom and they're stewards in the community, but it's successful, right? Like people want to be a part of that, and it just brings juice to your school and to your organ, whatever. And he got that. He understood that, and I just think it's such a valuable piece if you have a boss that gets it. And he got it, and so we had a ton of fun. It's probably I don't know if it's the most fun I ever had, but you're so young, right? Like we're in our 20s, and I was 29 when I got my first gig, and so we're still young. We don't know what we're doing. I felt like our coaches meetings on Sunday were just more of us like talking trash to each other, and making fun of each other, and having a pop and some pizza and watching football. And we would walk out, and I'm like, I feel like we have a pretty good plan right here, but I don't remember actually doing any work. So it was a ton of fun. But like I said, we didn't pay great. I also knew that my boss was looking to make a move as well. And he had some different stuff going on, right? It was kind of a power struggle, like with a lot of private schools, there's power struggles and different, with the different entities. And he said, I don't know if my kids are his boy graduated in 2007, my last year coaching there. And he ended up leaving the next year and ended up moving to Hawaii, actually, and being the president of the Marino School. So he was out. And I said, take me with you. And he said, you don't want to coach here. We're not very good. But I said, but it's in Hawaii. And so he ends up leaving. So, I mean, I think anytime you step down, it's hard. It's hard to leave the kid. It's hard. There's that connection. There's that. And it was hard. I think had I left to go anywhere else, it would have been way harder. It's really easy to kind of talk to them and say, guys, here's the deal. Like I'm going home. I get to go home and live down the road from my folks and my brother and my sister. This is the place that I grew up, right? Like we are where we are. And the reality was my wife had we got divorced and we had a daughter, and she had moved to Portland. And so it was like, well, why am I in Eugene? And I looked around in Portland a little bit. I looked around in Portland a little bit. I wasn't a huge fan of Portland Public. There just wasn't a lot of stuff that really A, was available, and then B, that I thought was would have made good sense. And so I said, I can go back up here, and it's the same distance, but I'm actually when I do have my daughter is, my whole family gets to see her, and the whole thing. So all those things played a role. So honestly, it really wasn't hard. But it was hard because you care about the people that you had worked with for 3 or 4 years, and you build strong relationships, and you just want them to know, I'm not leaving because I don't like you or where I'm at. I'm leaving because I just feel called to do this. Like, this is what I need to do, and this is where I need to be. So going up there was really fun. I got in They wanted to interview Mark Albertine was the guy that interviewed me. He was the athletic director at the time, and he called me like the second or third round of the playoffs. He was like, "Hey, would you be interested in interviewing for this job?" I was like, "Well, when do you do it?" He's like, "Well, we're closing it in like a week, and we want to interview next week." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I mean, I am, but we're in the playoffs, and I don't feel good about that. Like, I don't feel good about spending time on this when I should be spending time with those young men who have given us everything we have asked for, a year, and we're this close, and those guys need my full attention." And he got that, and I was grateful. And he said, "Okay, that's fine." He said, "Can you just please start the application process? Like, put your name in so it's there. We'll leave it open for another week. You can finish it." So anyway, so I got it all done. They postponed my interview till after the state championship, which was fun. And so that was cool that they let me focus on that. And then the next, I think it was the next week, really, I went up and interviewed, and when they called, I took like a holiday to San Diego. It's like right before Christmas, and they called and offered me the job, and that was really, I was obviously honored, but more so I was like, oh my gosh, so what do we got to do? Because we don't have anything. We don't own a football. We don't have a helmet. What are we doing? So, but also, like, that's a bucket list thing, right? That's really fun to be a part of the process of building a culture and creating one. And I think all coaches, when they take a program over, build and create a culture, but like from the ground up culture, like this is what we do. And so that was really fun, and got to start that off. I was able to, I ended up leaving in January from Eugene and going up to Snohomish. I'd never done a student teaching. It was really funny because I was at a private school. And so I got my that first year when I was the head coach at Marist. I was also in my master's program to get my teaching degree. So I would leave practice on Wednesday. That was when class was. And just say, hey, Kai, I know you've never run defense before, but here you're by yourself. And I would just leave practice and have to go do this. And then I would come back, and I'd get back late. There'd be a JV game or something going on. I'd watch that. But that was first year I got my teaching degree. But I never did a student teaching. So they said, hey, do your student teaching. And I picked up some side gigs or whatever, and was the manager for boys soccer and the manager for basketball or whatever I did, just to make a little money, and did all that, and did my student teaching. And that was a ton of fun because it was with Chris and Len Bone. So those two guys Chris is a longtime Snohomish guy. He just retired, and football legend there. And then Len was the boys basketball coach at Snohomish, and he was a ton of fun too. So we had a great time and did that. And, but yeah, it was buying all those. I mean, we had the school colors were picked out, and the mascot was picked out. So I did not get to help pick the mascot or the school colors. I like the school colors. I'd be okay with it. I do remember Jim Dean, our principal, saying silver is our accent color. It cannot be more than 10% of your uniform, which was disappointing. But I did talk him into saying silver helmets, and that's 10%. So that worked out good. But as far as like everything else, I mean, I did get to be a part of a little bit of the design of the field and things like that, as far as like where the turf's going to, go, and hey, can we put ladders in the D zones and do whatever, just the little stuff that about as a coach too, right? Like that just helps. But yeah, just just like buying everything for the first time, and figuring out the difference between capital bond money versus regular school year money, right? Like, oh no, you buy this many. You're like, really? That's this much? Is like, no, it's on the bond. Do it now because we won't be able to, and then we'll have it. Yeah. I know you don't need 120 helmets this year because you don't have seniors, but you will. So buy them now because it'll be easier to do that. So yeah. So that was a lot of fun. It was really fun to figure that out and design the uniforms and order everything and kind of plan out for the next year. And what was great, the funniest part about it is that spring, I've gone to the middle school and met the freshmen, and I've gone to Snohomish and met the guys that are going to be that are sophomores, that are going to be juniors. And so we did it. We opened up right away, had no seniors, played a varsity schedule, just said, we're going to take our lumps and go. And actually I wasn't a part of that process, but I was grateful for it. It's by far the best thing. In my opinion, if you're starting a program, that's what you do. You jump in, you don't play a JV schedule to start. You don't just go. And we were fortunate. We had a great group. It was a good group of kids. I was able to find, which is funny because I didn't know a lot of guys. I had a couple of guys that I mean, I know I was from Snohomish or am from Snohomish. But there were a lot of, I just didn't know a lot of guys that were coaching that I thought would want to move. I got a couple of them, and that was great. Got a couple from the freshman campus. And then a guy that I'd grown up playing with and stuff. But just had to find some guys and was able to find some really good guys like Steve Hannon. And then he was kind of the first one. He introduced me to a couple different guys and just ended up building a really fun staff. So, but that first spring, we had to practice the freshman campus at Snohomish, which is where the Snohomish Aquatic Center is now, because our school wasn't done. We had helmets and shoulder pads, but we didn't have any of the cloth gear yet.
Right.
So we're wearing Snohomish practice jerseys. We're wearing Snohomish practice pants. It wasn't great. I mean, they were like, seriously? Kids were walking down to the Snohomish freshman campus. They didn't know, and obviously no disrespect to Coach Perry. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. They just ran a different type of offense, right? And so I'm talking about different pass concepts and routes and whatever, and they're like, I don't know what that is. And the one kid's like, it's like a banana route. And I'm like, oh my God, we're still using the banana route concept? And that was like, well, I was nice. Anyway, it was just funny. And so you really had to go back and teach from the ground level just because it was such a different structure that we were putting in versus what they had grown up in. And it was a lot of fun, but there was a couple of days when you'd look out there and be like, we're about 30 minutes into practice and I don't know that we've caught a ball yet. I think every ball has hit the ground. I may have made a mistake here. And then first game we were just in Arlington last week and I was talking to Greg about it because he was the coach, I think it was his first year, might have been his second year. And I just remember it's 35-0 at halftime. And I got one kid playing varsity football. Like the rest of them are just standing around watching. And I'm like, I have made a mistake. I got to go back to Oregon. These guys we're not going to figure this out. And you just keep believing and you figure it out. But starting the program was a lot of fun. Just the tradition stuff, like the things we did before games and after games and, all those little pieces were fun. And I think they were fun because they were collaborative, like with our group of coaches, and then they were collaborative with our players, right? For me, it's always, and I'm sure you're the same way. It's like, this is not my program. This is your program. I'm just the shepherd, right? Like my job is to keep us on the tracks. And so the things that have been the most powerful that have kind of stuck with my teams, at least from a culture standpoint, and things we would do before or after or halftime or whatever, they were all player driven and they became something that the players valued. And then that carried on, and they would change a little bit over the years as different people would take ownership of them. But they would weather the storm, where some of the stuff that we would do would be like, well, why are we doing this? That's not something I care about. Speaking as a kid 5 years later, why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. But it was fun to build all those things from the ground up and really be. I was fortunate, like some of the stuff that we stumbled on offensively was different. And so that was fun to kind of bring that. It was funny. Tom Try at Lake, he and I started doing, he started doing some of the same offensive stuff that I was doing the year that I moved up. I started doing it at Marist in 2007. Just kind of stumbled onto that again and then moved up. And then actually in late July, I was running a camp in Denver and to teach this offense that we were doing, and Tom sent all of his starting SEAL guys there. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's week 2 right there. Week 3, must have been week 2, I think. Great. I got to teach you guys how to do this. And then you're looking at them doing it. I'm like, they're better than our guys. Yep. We might be in trouble, but it was a lot. That was fun too, to kind of to do something that people hadn't done in geographically in an area. And that was really fun to kind of just by happenstance, just kind of be a little bit ahead of the curve right there and do some really fun things. And because it got people in the community excited, right? Like that's what you want. As a first year guy in a new program, you're like, I need buy-in. I need to figure out how to get buy-in from not only my kids, but I need buy-in from the community. And so it was fun to kind of be able to do some of those things. And it didn't start out, I mean, we had 0-3. We didn't win our first 3 or 4 games, but thankfully the kids kept believing and the community kept believing, and we turned it around and got it rolling. So
yeah, you ended up even that first year you didn't have a losing season, 5-5, and then the next year 9-3, and now you've got seniors in the program and belief. And one of the other things, briefly, I'd like you to touch on is you had the Distinguished Academic Achievement Award every year at Glacier Peak, right? And then the way you built community and didn't have hazing or any of those kind of things, the culture you built. Tell me a couple of things that helped you achieve both those things.
I think hazing, when we talk about hazing, I think I probably walked in on a couple of situations that I'm grateful I walked in when I did and not 5 minutes later, because then it may have been hazing, but it was just like, no, that's not a good idea. Stop saran wrapping into the chair.
Right.
We're going to practice now. And it was those kids were having fun.
We've all been there, right?
Yeah. It's just like, no, stop now. I feel like, I think we do things because of the examples that we've had, right? Like in different examples I've had, whether they were good or bad, right? You do something because somebody else did it in a way that you're like, I'm never doing it like that. I'm not doing that. Or they did it like, oh no, that's exactly how I would, if I get the chance to do this, I will do it just like that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think for me, that first year, it made it easy because listen, at Marist, I didn't know what I was doing. None of us did. We were so young and just like, let's just go play ball, have fun. And I think that's what, we were relatable to the kids and we were young and so they would relate to us and it was a lot of fun. But it was a much smaller school, it was a much smaller community. I mean, it was 45 kids in the program and it's like, now you're talking about 130 to 150 and it's just the scope is bigger. And I think that first year, our kids, I was like, guys, we have no seniors. The sophomores and the freshmen are going to contribute. Mm-hmm. So, you get that older group together. They're juniors, but they're just turned 16, most of them. The half of them can't drive. I mean, we had like 5 kids driving and 7 kids shaving the first year. That was it. Like nobody else is not there yet. And so I'm like, guys, we're going to need these guys. You got it. There can't be this hierarchy of I'm an upperclassman. I'm better than you. You haven't earned it yet. It's like, no, none of you have earned it. Mm-hmm. We all are in the same place. We have to work together. You're going to need everybody we have that is upright and can put a helmet and shoulder pads on. And thankfully they bought into it. I mean, I think circumstance played a big role. I think that group of kids was really, they were talented. I mean, it's like, we don't win games. You and I don't win the games, but Jimmy's and Joe's win games. I can call the best play in the world, but if the kids can't do it or the other team's way better, we're in trouble. So we had good kids. So that was the first thing, is that those kids were talented and they were really hungry, but they were hungry to kind of have their own thing, right? Like when I grew up in Clearview, which is where Glacier Peak is, and there was nothing really there. It's farmland and some timber and some houses, and you went to Snohomish or you went to like Bothell, mm-hmm. right? And so that Mill Creek area really hadn't really started developing yet. So yeah, we went to Snohomish every week. That's where you did your grocery shopping. That's where you did your banking. That's where you went and got your snow tires, like the whole thing. But by the time I had come back in the early 2000s, it had changed dramatically. Those people, they're like, the only time I go to Snohomish is on Friday night. That's it. And not that they didn't like Snohomish, but there was no need to, because these things had cropped up around them, and this community of Mill Creek and that whole Cathcart community had kind of grown. And so they were just super hungry to have that. So they bought into that, which I'm grateful for. But it really was something that we believed in. You're not better than them just because you're a year older than them. And maybe that comes from me being at the academy and having to deal with that. And that was super frustrating. Like, why do you get to yell at me? Because I know a year ago you were the kid crying because you couldn't do the push-ups or the pull-ups or whatever. Mm-hmm. But now you want to yell at me. I got no problem. I'll do all the push-ups and sit-ups and whatever you want. But it was that hierarchy piece. And I think that maybe that's the reason for me. I don't know. I never really thought about it before. Maybe you just opened the door for me right there. That's good. But I was super adamant about, this is like your little brother and you better take care of him. Mm-hmm. We're not picking on him. And I got nobody else better pick on him. If we go to camp and I see anybody getting messed with by anybody else, I better find 100 dudes right behind him saying, this is my guy, leave him alone. Yep. So, I don't, it worked out. We every program has a little bit of shenanigans, but to keep it under wraps pretty good. I just think everybody was so excited to have their own thing. I really do. I think that was a big part of it. Like they had been able to kind of to separate and start their own program, and all the years that they had to kind of go in and be a part of this other community that they weren't really a part of anymore, just because of, you know, everything grew up around them. So I think that made it easier. But I think that having great players helped too. Obviously, and great coaches. I've been fortunate my whole career. Hire good people and have good kids, and things turn out okay.
Well, I can see why people love playing for you, Coach. The value that every player has in the program, and they're protected and well thought of. And hey, you better protect. These are all your little brothers, right? You don't have to like all your family, but you better darn well love them and take care of them, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah. So to leave a program like that, right? Probably again, maybe thought, hey, be at Glacier Peak forever. And then an opportunity opens up at Union High School, and a pretty new school. They started in 2007, and they've had some success, haven't gotten over the top yet. And then your daughter's in high school by this point down in Portland, and an opportunity to, again, go to another place that's pretty new and build things up and be close to your daughter. So tell me about the decision to go down there to Union, and, and just to lay the foundation, your first year, 4-5, and then pretty good season after that. By year 3, it's 14-0, state champs in 18. So tell me a little bit about that decision.
And I didn't plan on leaving. I was great at GP. I was happy there. Everything was, I say I didn't plan on leaving, but I always knew, like, my daughter was getting older and she was coming into high school and, playing sports and doing all that stuff. It was easy when she was younger because it was all on the weekends. Like, let's go. Yeah, I'll go down and get a hotel for the weekend and spend the weekend in a gym in Portland somewhere or whatever, and basketball and volleyball. And volleyball was kind of a big sport, but so that I knew I needed it. She was going into high school. Those games are going to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays now. So that makes it difficult to make a 3-hour drive if I'm going to be coaching or whatever. And I was super happy, actually, Glacier Peak. I was maybe 13 or 14. I was struggling. I was like, I was just losing perspective. I think we've all kind of been there. Mm-hmm. You get to a certain place and you feel like, okay, well, the next step is we need to win more. Like, we've done all these things and we've grown the program and we built it and the culture's strong. It's like, well, we got to get over the hump and win more games. And it became my focus, which was wrong. Like, that's the wrong thing to do. Like, wins are a byproduct of all the little stuff, right? And the little stuff and the beliefs that you do, the things that you do every single day, that's what your program's about. And I just was I had kind of lost sight of that, just because I felt like I was like, well, the next step, I have to get to here now. And I probably got spoiled. Obviously, you win a couple of them early on because you have great kids. You're like, well, why are we winning? I should be winning it by now. It's been years, 5 or 6. I should have won a state championship by now. And thankfully I had great coaches. Again, I had guys that were like, hey, why are you being such a jerk? And they didn't say I was a jerk. They said other things, but I'd like to keep it G-rated for you. I don't know. But they were like, you're being a jerk and you need to fix it. And I was so grateful for them because they were spot on. I was just a clown. I was being a jerk. And, it kind of reset my perspective so I was feeling great. We were rolling. We had a great year in 15 at GP, went to the quarters, had a shot at Bellevue twice, got them 2 times and couldn't get any time, but played them super tough. And it was a lot of fun. It was a great group of guys. We had a great group of guys coming up, dialed in staff. So I felt great. I didn't want to leave, but like you said, my daughter was getting into high school. I knew that was going to be an issue. I was at the WSCA clinic, and one of the running back coach at Camas, I knew because he was the equipment manager at Oregon when I was there. So, the degrees of separation, right? And he's like, hey, did you hear the union job's open? I'm like, I did hear about that. Mm-hmm. Have they got anybody? He's like, no, but I heard they're tying an AD job to it. Mm. And I was like, oh, that was something I was really interested in. Like, it's like anything else, right? Like, I want to start a program. That would be really fun. I think it would be fun to run an athletic program because I feel like, as a football coach, you manage more athletes than anybody but the track coach, probably, right? And just the public piece of it. And I was like, I think this would be a lot of fun. I think I'd do okay at it. And I knew that in Snohomish, like, no, you're not. If you're doing that, you're not coaching. And I wasn't ready to be done coaching yet. So, I actually, it's funny. When I found that out, I called Cale Pyland, who's the district AD down there. He was the original head coach at Union. And I say, "Okay, Kale, I don't know what if it's true or not, but I know we're looking for a football coach at Union, and I heard that it might be they might tie an AD job to it. So if that's true, would you please call me back?" And then I didn't hear anything for about a week. And I was sitting, I was living in Sultan at the time with my wife, and it was just the two of us. The boys were gone, and Gab was living with her mom, and phone rings about 7 o'clock. And I don't know this number.
Yeah.
Okay, hello, and it was the principal at Union, and we just started talking. And an hour and a half later, we're still talking, and I'm looking at my wife going, this guy's got it. Like, he's saying what you need to, like, I'm hearing what I want to hear right now. And not like he's going to give me this and give me that. Just like, no, what he values, like the things that he values, and how he values athletics, and how it translates to the school, and all the different stuff that you want to hear as a coach, because you're going to get supported. He was cooking it, buddy. It was good. And we got a phone. I said, "Kel, I think we should drive down there. I want to meet this guy. I think he's a guy." He reminded me of Perry. He reminded me of the first guy that hired me. And I feel bad because I'm not saying Jim Dean, and Jim was a great principal to work for. But it was different. He was close to retirement, and he's, there's certain things, there's certain carts you don't want to tip over when you're at places in your career. And he was great. He never kept me from doing the things that I felt like we needed to do for our program. But this guy was juiced. He was jacked and ready to go. He was like, we need to get our culture. We need to reset our culture and get it rolling. And you're the guy to do it. I'm like, oh, this is great. Let's go down there. So I went down there and we met, and same kind of thing. I got back in the car and I said, "Kel, I think this is something we should seriously look at." So we drove around, and we were driving around, and I just kind of had an informal interview with them. And then they called me like, "Hey, we need to set up a formal interview, but we want you to do this." And so I was like, "Wow, okay, geez, see how this goes." But it was a blessing. It was time. It was really hard. Like anything else, it's hard to leave this place, because I had such great relationships with kids and community and staff, and leaving my parents and my wife's parents. Kelly, my wife, her parents live in Forks.
Right.
And so that was, it was a couple hour drive. It wasn't bad. Moving to Vancouver, now you're 2.5 from them and 6 from Forks, but we were close to Gavin, so that was important, and I was grateful that she was good with that. It was also farther from both of the boys, who were both at school in Ellensburg. And so now we went from 2.5 to 5 on that. So it was, we made it. It was a tough decision, but at the end, it's like, this is what you do for family. I want to be close to Gab. We would never get to watch her compete, just if I was coaching. And so we made the move, and yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was hard the first year. We should have won more than 4 games. It was my fault. I got a little squirrely, trying to appease everybody. But I felt a lot of pressure. Like, we need to be good. Like, we need to win games. And it was kind of the same thing that I felt like 3 years ago, where I was like, started focusing too quick on the winning piece. And thankfully I had had somebody remind me of it about week 7 in year 1, that like, it's not why you're here. It's not your purpose. Your purpose is not to win games. Your purpose is to create great young men. And so anyway, we kind of got myself back on track for that. And that was really good. But yeah, the first year was tough. It was really fun. It was really fun putting in our systems, right? And it took a while, like anything else. Offensively was easy, but it was really hard because there's nobody else really knew and spoke the language. So you're trying to teach and do all the things you're doing, but really they kind of know. They would say something, they'd look at you like, "Is that right?" And so it took a couple of years, but the offense kind of figured itself out pretty quick, and then the defense took a couple of years to find the right group of guys that could mesh with me, and we all worked well together. But I also thought that we're great teachers and great role models for kids and all that kind of stuff too. So we turned that one quick. I mean, I feel like with anything, like at that point I had done it before. Like, I had started over and did something different. So I felt like we were a little quicker on the turn on that one, where by year 2 we were really doing pretty good. I mean, again, we had great players. Like, that's the first thing I'll say. We had great players, and I was able to find some really talented and smart and coaches that cared about being mentors. And so then by year 2, we kind of had it rolling, and we weren't quite there. And obviously we got whipped in the playoffs by Sumner, but And then that next year that was when we kind of put it all together. Like all the pieces came together, the coaching, the kids, the community, the culture, everything kind of worked itself out. That was a really fun year. Stressful year, but a fun year.
So if you don't mind going a little longer, I think we're having a great conversation.
I'm good, buddy.
Okay.
I'm loving it. No, I love this stuff. It's fun.
Awesome. So that year that you, year 3 there at Union, you go 14-0. And some things that I've heard about that season is you had a trip down to California that you felt maybe built you into the team you were, because you had to face adversity from delays to being chased by raccoons. That's something I might need to hear about.
I did get chased by raccoons.
Yeah. And then you had 7 games that you came from behind on, including twice against Puyallup, once in week 5 and once in the semifinals, down by 14 points. And then at the end, in the championship, you face a guy from way up north, Tom Try, in the finals, right? So you get him 52-20 against Lake Stevens in the finals. So tell me a little bit about that season and what built you guys up and some of those experiences stand out.
We had created a really strong leadership core, like kids, a quarterback being at the center of it, which, as you know, is such a powerful thing. And so they really were a good driving force of a lot of this stuff, which was great. Like when you don't have to coach or police effort or just kind of do right. Like there's, what do right is. And if it ain't right, then it's wrong and you should stop doing it. And those guys did a great job of that. They really were good. I mean, I never had to talk to anybody about effort or because they would do it. First of all, it didn't happen. And if it did, they would fix it, which is so powerful. But I think that was a product of our coaches doing a good job those first 2 years of kind of setting the standard. Like, this is what our standard is. And it's not because we're mean and we're being hard asses. It's because this is what you're capable of. Mm-hmm. And why would you do something worse than what you're capable of? It doesn't make sense. So anyway, we got to that place and we built a hard schedule. So Southwest Washington is very unique. And I was super excited to go down there because I knew that I would get to compete against some really talented coaches, right? With Kai's and Eags and the different guys that were down there. And I just say those two because they were in our conference, but there's only 4 when I first year there, we had more, but then it was like, there was 4 schools. I mean, it was us and Camas and Skyview and Battleground. So you have 3 league games. You have to find 6 league games. None of the 3As want to play any of us except Battleground. They'll play Battleground all day long. Although Woody's got them going pretty good right now, but it was hard to find games, right? The only guy that would play us was Math, and Math hated me. Math, first of all, this is the other thing that was like, I didn't get it, and I should have figured it out. I'd been in a private school, so I know how that works. But I got down there, and like everybody hated Union. They hated Union like they were a private school. Mm-hmm. And those guys wouldn't even talk to me, which I should have been also used to because the Snohomish people wouldn't talk to me when Glacier Peak opened. Like I had old men refuse to shake my hand. Like, no, we're not talking to this clown. He's a traitor. What? Yeah, I mean, it was a 2-year process for me and Adam. And I love Adam. He and I have such a tremendous respect for him, and I know you know him really well too. But it was the strained relationship at the beginning, buddy. Mm-hmm. Not good. And then he had one of his he had 2 really good players in back-to-back years transferred from Mountain View to Union. Mm-hmm. So that was not good also. But I think over time, we built a super strong friendship and I think had a great mutual respect. And he was set to coach at Union with me when he had left Mountain View before he took the Camas job. And then Camas came and he's like, well, and I'm like, why are we even talking? Just go take the job. That's what you need to do. Mm-hmm. You're going to be the next head coach there. And you're going to win like 7 state championships. Because that's the kind of dude you are. It's the kind of program you build. So we become great friends, but that was such a hard deal because nobody liked Union, and so because I worked at Union, they were like, you're a jerk, and so it took a long time to really build those relationships. And Adam was one of them, and he was the only guy that would play us. And I said, why would you? I know you didn't like Union, and I know you didn't like me to begin with. Why would you always play us every year? And he's like, Coach, it was the best gate I had all year long. When we had you guys, it was my first home game at McKenzie Stadium was Union Mountain View. Both sides of the stadium are packed. There's smoke and baby powder everywhere. And I'm like, what is going on right now? It was intense. It was a lot of fun. So it was hard to find games. And so, you had to build your non-league schedule intentionally if you felt like you were pretty good, because you didn't want to get to week 6, 7, or 8 or 9 playing an elite program with elite coaching and not have ever been tested. So you kind of try to build a schedule. So man, that first 4 weeks for us was like, what are we doing? But it was hard to find games. So you just took what you could get. And the funny part is like Mountain View. Well, Mountain View had one of the semifinals that year. So that's a whole nother deal. We kind of went with each other the whole year and ended up in a fun story that I would love to share at the end. But those were like the closest games. Like they should have beat us that year. Like it was 14-7, and they absolutely should have beat us. We played like crap. We just didn't play good. And they probably would say the same thing. But so it was really hard. So we had a game, we lost it. And so we ended up booking this game in California. And we only had like 4 months to plan it. It was kind of tight. But I wasn't going to find another game. And I'm like, we can't have a bye. I don't need a bye. This team needs to be challenged. They need to be tested, challenged, and put to the fire so that they can figure out who they are. And so I think we were playing Central Catholic. We were playing Central Catholic's freshman team. So Steve, who is now the head coach at Union, by the way, we're there at McKenzie playing this freshman game. And he's like, are they going to let you go tomorrow? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, the fires. I'm like, well, there's fires. What are you talking about? So I get on my phone. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm not saying anything to anybody. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and just hope they let me get on the bus. So we got in the bus, we get out of there. And then by the time we get down to Southern Oregon, like it's real now. Like we're getting detoured. We had all these plans to do this, do that, stop at this junior college. And we were going to have a joint dinner with the team we were going to play, do a walkthrough, then have this joint dinner. Anyway, we didn't make it to any of those things, needless to say. At one point, I'm pretty sure we were on a dirt road. It was dicey. But we got down there and it was super late. It was like midnight. We missed all this stuff. We had to go pick up. My wife drove down and she had like all the stuff in the back of our SUV. So she's like loading up all the food and just, you know how it is, buddy. And I said, go get like 100 sets of anyway, they couldn't find the food that we ordered that was ready. It was a bunch of chicken and stuff. We finally found it. We get back to the hotel and it's like midnight. And so we're going to eat and do a little thing. They need to eat, obviously. So we get out. Well, they all start throwing their garbage in these garbage cans where they fill it up. And so then they just put it on the outside. So we're all in. I say, we finally get them over to this like team room or thing that we're going to go at, and we're going to eat and watch a little video and then go to bed. And I walk back outside, and I go to walk outside. Here's the raccoon story. And there's like 5 raccoons across this like open, just sliding door that opens, and they're just staring at me like, "What are you going to do?" And I'm like, "What?" And I look back at the people, and I said, "What?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, one of our staff members, he's been fired now. He would feed these raccoons. It was a really cool place we stayed at, and it was really reasonable, but it was like out in this point by the marina in Berkeley area. And so it was kind of isolated. You drove on this man-made like road bridge thing out to this peninsula, and there was the hotel and the marina. That was it. And so these raccoons they got super brave, and they'd come out. So now they're like all over. So I'm like, well, I'm kind of scared. Like they're like looking at, like they're not letting me leave. And like, no, you're fine. Just walk through. So I kind of walk, and they move off to the side. And I think it's good. And I got to go out to the car to get something. And then I'm going back in the hotel. And I'm not kidding you. I got out there, and they like circled me and like surrounded me. Like they're like, you got something and we want it. And I'm like, I don't have anything. Anyway, they were, first of all, why, guys, don't leave all your trash out there. That's what attracted them in the first place. But I didn't know that they were kind of pets, and they'd been emboldened. But yeah, they chased me to the car, and they surrounded me, and I just yelled and ran. I have a unnatural fear of raccoons at this point as a 50-year-old man because of that experience. But we made it. Nobody got attacked. And I said, do they ever come? I was like, ladies, do they come in the building? She's like, they've gotten right to that. There was like a double opening door. So there was like a middle area there. And like, they've gotten into that one, but they've never come into the second one. I said, anyway, it was kind of terrifying. So yeah, that trip. And then we get to the game, and we had some huddle technical difficulties with our end zone video, but we're all aware of that. Everybody has that. But we get out there, and we're getting ready to start the game, and they're doing the national anthem, and everybody's getting fired up. And I'm like, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know why we're doing the national anthem. We're not having a game. There's no officials here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking around and I'm like, and I'm looking over and the band just started playing. Everybody lined up and I'm like, we're not going to start a game, you guys. We haven't had a coin toss. There's no officials here. I look over and I see the coach on the other side of the field and he's on his phone, calling other coaches saying, can you send an official from your game to my game? I forgot to get officials.
Oh my.
So I'm like, anyway, well, they get through that. And then I walk over, I'm like, what are we doing? And he says, hey, do you want to come back tomorrow and play? I'm like, bro, I just drove through a forest fire for 24 hours to get here. We're going up. I mean, and I've got like this whole weekend planned. So no, I do not want to come back and play tomorrow. I would like you to have done your job and gotten officials for this game. So figure it out. And he was like, so he's calling and I can hear the coaches. The games have started.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're out there. Imagine it's the first quarter, you're on offense trying to call the play and your phone is ringing. And he's like, stop calling me. He's like, just send an official. No, stop calling me. I'm trying to coach. So anyway, we're hanging out. I'm like, we're not leaving. We're not playing this game tomorrow. We're playing tonight. So you need to figure it out. So he figured it out. I mean, to his credit, he figured it out. And at about maybe 9:00, 8:45. No, it was after 9 because the game ended after midnight. Probably 9:30. Mm-hmm. The first official shows up. I've never heard people cheer for officials like that in my life. But you got to have two. So we couldn't start yet. So at about 15 minutes later, a second guy showed up, and then it really was on. And then they were like, what do you guys have, a quarter? They wanted to do a coin toss, but nobody had a quarter. So anyway, we did the coin toss. We start the game. By the end of the game, there were like 15 officials there. Like everybody just showed up. There was like 3 white hats. There were 3 guys on each sideline. It was one guy just talked to me the whole time. He didn't do anything.
Wow.
But it was a ton of fun. And we should, it's like anything else. I felt like we should have kind of handled these guys. I mean, they were super talented. They had like a 10-5 guy in the 100. I mean, he was so fast. Mm-hmm. And their two receivers were like 6'5", and they stayed in the game by just making this grown men plays. Mm-hmm. But I felt like we should have been ahead by a couple scores, but we weren't. We actually got down at the end. They kicked off to us with like 40 seconds left, and they kicked it out of bounds. And I said, kick it again. And everybody's like, what are you doing? Take the ball at the 40. We need a touchdown. We're down by like 5 points. And I'm like, I feel like I had a smart old coach tell me one time. Mm-hmm. And they only suited like 35 kids. Like for a huge school, all 35 of them were elite athletes, but they didn't suit. They didn't have a bunch of kids. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I had just looked out there. I'm like, all these guys that are on the kickoff team have played like 100 snaps tonight. Mm-hmm. And I was like, kick it again. And there was like, why? I'm like, because I think these guys are tired. Mm-hmm. I feel like somebody told me that one time. And we did it, and he returned it for a touchdown, and we won the game. It was awesome. And then we did our thing. We went to FCS game there, and did some fun stuff on the weekend. And I just feel like that was like just kind of a galvanizing event for us as a group, right? Like if you guys can get through the adversity of this weekend with the forest fire and the no officials, and then you almost lost the game. And then, then coming back with the forest fires, we got detoured a bunch of times and it was kind of dicey, and it just took a lot longer to get back than we thought. But that was a really cool event and a galvanizing event. And I feel like to any coach I just think those experiences, when you have a team that you think has a chance to be good, has an opportunity to kind of solidify the group of people and just really get the buy-in that you want and the ability to kind of take it to the end. And so I think that was a huge thing for us. And then obviously the next week was Puyallup, which again, if you go back to it and you're like, yeah, we came back from this, how many points down or whatever. Well, we had great kids, we had great leadership. And then those kids would it's fun. This, it is fun when your kids start parroting you, when they start saying what you say and you're like, oh, did he just say speed of the leader, speed of the pack? Mm-hmm. Atta boy, that's what I'm talking about right now. It's just fun. So you start hearing those things, and like I think our coaches were like, I think we're gonna lose this game against Puyallup, and the kids were like, we're good, don't worry about it, we got this. Mm-hmm. And it was just like flip the switch and we're on. And they did it, and it was a great win and a heartbreaking one for Puyallup, I'm sure, because by all accounts they should have won the game. But I think that was a byproduct of, or in part a byproduct of, what they had experienced the week before, and just the belief that, like, guys, no matter what happens, we're fine. We can overcome it. We'll just keep chopping wood, keep carrying water, and we'll be fine. So yeah, it was good. It was good. And then we got them again in the semifinals, and we certainly should have lost that game. We actually took our outside linebacker. They were the best back shoulder fade, like it was kind of like an RPO option where they just kind of run a go, but the receiver would literally just look back, and he was throwing the ball if you were over the top, he was throwing the ball at 10 yards. He'd just stop, fall out of bounds. It was a first down, and I'm like, we can't stop this play, you guys. Without kind of bracketing this kid, we can't stop the play. And if we bracket the kid, the running backs rush for 1,500 yards this year. Like, they're going to score.
Yeah.
And so we kind of got to play it to a degree straight up, but we got to try to figure out how to keep them from being able to back shoulder. Well, we're not. They're going to beat us. And then when you did kind of not play over the top of as much, then he hits a fade for a touchdown or whatever, and you play off a little bit to try to be able to sit on the route, and he slants you for a touchdown. It happened twice. I'm like, we're going to lose this game. They're going to beat us in the stinking semifinals. And then our defensive guys were like, hey, what do you think of this? Because our best corner was out. Darian was out. So we had a junior who was a smart kid, but not very physically gifted, and then another backup. And we're like, well, why don't we let's move Vallejo to corner. And I'm like, he's played outside linebacker all year. He's never played corner all year, but he's just, you have savvy kids that are like, I know ball and I'm gritty and I'll figure it out. Like, put him over here. And I'm like, all right. And then we took Lincoln, our quarterback, and said, put Lincoln. And we had rep Lincoln at defense in practice about 15 minutes a week all year at safety and at corner, just to say, just in case, right? You get to a point in the season where somebody is all hands on deck, we're playing. And we're like, put him in. And this kid had like 9 catches for like 170 and like 2 touchdowns. We put Lincoln in the start of the fourth quarter. This kid didn't catch a ball the rest of the game.
Wow.
He just shut him down. And this kid was like 6'3", and Lincoln's 5'8" or 9 or whatever. But anyway, and the other guy didn't catch a ball either. So we ended up just doing this, probably something that most people would say is not very smart. But I think you believe in your kids and you believe in the guys that are coaching them, and you like it. It'll work. I'm like, okay, it'll work. Let's do it. And it worked. So it's good. But honestly, the week before that against Bothell, Bainter had us. He should have beat us. We should have lost probably 4 games that year. Honestly, there was probably 4 games we should have lost. Quarterfinals and semifinals definitely being 2 of them. But our kids just believe. I mean, our kids just believed, and our coaches, well, they had them. Yeah, they just had everybody ready. It was just, I was so grateful to be a part of that group of men that were just so resilient. It was fun. Lost our line coach.
The resiliency, those kids believe, they're saying all of your mottos, and going back to Marist, you had a couple of state championships there, and even another one as an assistant. Is there anything in common that all 4 of those teams that you're a part of had?
Yeah, I think the most, you know what, here's the deal. And I know you know this already, but what I would say was a common theme. And I think is a common theme with most championship level organizations is they do not care about personal accolades. They understand that through team success, those personal accolades will come. Like, they would rather win than score 4 touchdowns or have 3 sacks or whatever. Like, I didn't catch, like, our best player, not our best player, our best receiver, our most highly recruited player, right? Signs with Nebraska. He went 2 weeks without catching a ball. And, everybody's telling, well, you better talk to Darian, but this, but that, blah, blah. Dad's mad, whatever. You talk to Darian, he's like, Coach, hey, I'm good. Don't worry about it. What was the score of that game, Coach? 47-10. Yeah, I'm good. I don't care. I just want to win. So I think that, to me, that's a big deal. If you can get kids to understand that if it's okay to not catch 10 balls a game, right? Like, in the end, it's all going to work itself out. 1 week we might say, hey, we're going to run the ball 80 times, or they're bracketing you, and so we're going to take advantage of this. But the next week it might not be that, and that's when you're going to eat. And so if you just do your job and trust the preparation and the process and all the things that we do through the week to get to the game, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done and we're tallying it up at the end, you're going to have gotten what you needed to get. He's going to get, this guy's going to get what he needs. They're going to get what they need. And we're going to be all better for it because we're just a diverse group. Like, what are you going to do? You can take away the run game? Great. We'll do this. You can take away the pass game? Great. We'll do this. You're going to take these two guys away? Great. Then these two guys will go. And so Mike Leach was like, balance is a myth. Tony Franklin said the same thing. Like, balance is not about 50-50 run pass to me. Balance is about, I have 6 eligible players to touch the ball. Quarterback, 4 receivers, running back, or whatever, some fashion of that. At the end of the night, did you have to account for all 6 of those people? Like, in some fashion. And if the answer is yes, that's pretty balanced. Like, that's really hard. You can't load up an area to stop one thing. And so I think for me, I think that's the common theme, is those kids were selfless, and they understood that if we did our job and did the little things, that everybody was going to get what they needed to get. And they cared more about the team's success than their own personal accolades.
Yeah. That's talking with Wiley Allred, Royal, selflessness is key to his teams. And it's why we always put "we over me" in the back of our shirts every year.
Yep. The only name that matters is the one on the front of your jersey, not the one on the back.
Absolutely. So, Coach, you finally get that championship again. You had 2 early in your career. You were wondering at Glacier Peak and maybe got things a little bit out of whack, right? Chasing that championship, but you get one in year 3. All is good, and you're riding a high, and then life kind of crashes down around you, right? 3 months from your daughter's graduation, senior year, she's in a 1-car fatal accident.
Yep.
And
Hey, buddy.
I mean, that's every parent's worst nightmare, right? And then to add to that, there's a freshman football player and an O-line coach that also, in a short span of time, are losses in your program. But nothing's like your own daughter, right? So talk to me a little bit about how you overcome that. And I know you probably never fully do. Grief is something that it comes back you can be okay for a while, and then it comes back. And unfortunately, there's others that are in this same fraternity that would never want to be in it. But how did you get through those times, Coach? And was your team in any way a support for you in that?
I think, you said it, you never get over it. Like, that never leaves. I mean, I think it's probably Wednesday or Thursday. I was just sitting in my office and doing something, and something triggered a memory, and I got a little emotional, and my assistant walks in and she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm just thinking about something." And I'm happy. It's a happy cry. I'm good. Yeah. We're good. And that's okay. And I think, I think for me, the bigger fear is like forgetting stuff. Like, am I going to wake up one morning and forget the sound of her voice, or forget her face, or forget, what a hug felt like, or just that stuff, right? That's what you are terrified you're going to forget. So I don't ever get, I don't get upset when I get caught in a moment, because I think those are important. And you shouldn't forget them, and you should embrace them, and it's okay to cry. Like, it's good to cry. Like, that's a healthy thing. So I think that, it sucked, dude. That was a bad day. I just remember, I am very grateful for how I found out. I was actually, I left Union, and I was driving over to one of the middle schools to do like a spring sports forum with like all the 8th graders that were coming in. So we kind of put it all together for all the different sports. Then I was going to represent football, but I was there as the athletic director. And I was about halfway there. It was like a 5-minute drive, 8-minute drive. And I was about halfway there. And I get a call, like, "Hey, Kale needs to talk to you. You need to come back to Union." And I'm, in my head, I'm like, "God, what did I do now? What am I in trouble for? What happened? I get a hand slap." So I get back there. I go into the principal's office, who, again, Brian Grimstead had become a great friend of mine. We hung out a lot socially, but I just had a ton of respect for him. He was our principal, the guy that hired me. And then Kale was the district AD. And so we're sitting there, and I'm like, "What are we doing?" And they were waiting for this, this is we've been in education a long time. Sometimes bigger districts, they've got like, "Well, this is our protocol. This is this is that." And like, "We need our crisis management grievance person." And I'm like, "Why am I in here?" And like, "Well, we're waiting on somebody else." And I'm like, "Am I in trouble?" Like, this is what I want to know. Am I in trouble? Because I'd already gotten in trouble once. which was a whole other ridiculous story. But and I had said, Cal, am I in trouble? And he's like, he told me. I'm like, no, you're not in trouble. I'm like, well, then you need to tell me what's going on.
Mhm.
Like, well, we just gotta wait for somebody. So then, in your head, you're like, well, what's wrong? So immediately I call my dad. You okay? Call my mom. You okay? Call my wife. You okay? Call Gabby. Again, first of all, none of them answer, which is fantastic.
Mhm.
So now I have no clarity at all. I'm like, well, it could be any of them. I don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong. Something's not right. And we're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And finally, Grim, and I'm grateful to him, he's just like, Kale, I'm done. I'm telling him he needs to know right now. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. And he just said, your daughter got in a car accident, passed away. And I don't, like, it was dumb. It's kind of, I mean, I remember standing up and I probably threw something. I don't remember. I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta get out of here right now. I gotta leave. And thankfully, Kale went back and told the lady, yeah, we don't come. And then Brian went with me, and he drove me. Thank God. Thank God he drove me.
Mhm.
But he drove me back to my house. I mean, my wife was gone. I was actually my grandmother had just passed away, and the funeral was Gabby was gonna come over after school that day, and we were gonna drive up and spend like 2 days up in Snohomish and have the service and do all the stuff. And so my wife had already gone up there to help my dad get ready for the deal. And so I had to call them and tell them. And anyway, it was an awful deal. And they were fantastic. The district was fantastic. They took tremendous. I mean, if I didn't want to come back the whole semester, they'd have it figured out. But, it's bad, dude. It was a bad deal. Hey, baby girl. Oh, that's beautiful. You want to say hi? It is a rainbow. You want to say hi?
Hi there.
This is Miss Ruby.
Hi, Ruby.
Hi, Ruby. Okay, you can take it back up.
I found a rainbow.
We got a picture of a rainbow.
All right.
Show it.
I'd love to see it.
Picture of a rainbow right there.
Oh, beautiful. Is that your sister with you?
Yep, that's Charlie.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl.
I love you.
What timing, by the way?
Yeah, perfect. Actually,
Isn't that awesome?
No, it always is, right? It's
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So anyway, I'm down. I'm so low. I just don't think. You can imagine, right? Your child passes away. She's in the prime of her life. She's 3 months from graduation. She's just a boss. I mean, she's such a boss. And anyway, so about 2 weeks in, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't just be wallowing. Like, I'm just self-pity right now. I'm just everywhere I was would just remind me of her, all the stuff. I'm like, anyway, I was grateful. I was grateful to have the kids and the staff and whatever. So, kind of slowly got back into it, did that. And truly I did it because I needed some brightness. I needed something good. And so those kids were my good, right? Like that was the fun part. And they were fantastic. And, they were empathetic and they were very supportive, but you don't understand. You just don't get it.
Mhm.
But I think that, we had lost our O-line coach, who was just a crucial part of our operation. And he was just the guy. Like, he was Union football, like through and through. And he'd been there since the beginning with Kale, with everybody. And he died of cancer the night we beat Skyview to clinch the league title. And so that was a big deal that our kids got to feel that. And then unfortunately I had to go through my deal and they had to deal with me. And but I think my message to them was like, we hammer you guys so much about just being strong and overcoming adversity and all the stuff, right? Like, what kind of a role model am I if I just lay around and wallow in pity for 3 months, regardless of what happens, right? It was like, no, I can't look him in the eye and ask him to do the things I ask him to do if I'm not willing to do it when I have something hard. And so anyway, it was good. I was so glad I got back into it. I think it helped my healing process tremendously to be able to just see those guys every day, and they would just randomly come up like months later, like, how you doing, coach? Like, I'm good. Thanks for asking. I appreciate that. It was really cool. And then I think when we lost an incoming freshman young man. He was swimming at one of the little lakes down by Lacamas Lake down there, and drowned, unfortunately, and super tragic. And it happened the night before doubles started. And I think that our kids handled that really well because they had already had to deal with my stuff, and they had dealt with Coach Rigo. And I think that that helped them, probably just having been through it twice. But I know for me that those kids saved me. They helped me get through it, because they gave me a purpose still, where when you get to a place where you're like, what is, like, I don't understand, God. Like, there's no, how can you tell me why this is a good thing?
Right.
And so at that point, you're like, what's the point? If all the stuff we're doing, and then that happens, like, what are we doing right now? And so those kids, the kids were the ones that kind of got me back right and got me moving forward again. And I was super grateful for them. It was a big deal.
Well, I'm sure that was super impactful for each of those guys. They will take that for their lives moving forward. And like you said, the grief never goes away, but maybe it lessens for a while. And one of the things I found is, over time, maybe it allows us to smile and remember the good memories more and not just be sad. And those moments come up, but can you share with me maybe, I know she was 6'2", phenomenal volleyball player. She'd speak at church and sing. Can you maybe share maybe one of your favorite memories of her?
Oh, well, I do remember. So there's a couple things. Well, one, she did a talent show thing one time, and I got to figure out how to get it back. I can't find it on YouTube right now. I'm pretty sure my ex-wife has it, so I'm gonna get that from her. But she did a talent show, and she sang an Adele song. And I just remember, like, you're like 9 years old, and it was just on fire. It was legit. Like, everybody's clapping and stomping. They like made you guys got to stop making so much noise because we can't hear her sing anymore. But it was, that was the first time. I think we're in amazement of our kids all the time, right? Like, just little things that they do. And whatever. But that was the first time I was like, oh my goodness, what are you? That is you doing that? Like, how are you doing that? It was so amazing. It sounded it sounded just like her, but not like her. Like, it sounded like Adele, but it was clearly my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so just like, wow, that is amazing. You are so talented. And the courage you have to do that in front of these people is amazing to me. So that was the first moment I was like, oh my goodness, this girl is different. Like, she was never afraid to be out in front and do things. She had no problem being on stage and being in front of people and open herself up to the criticism that comes with that. Right. That's a hard thing. So I was so proud of her for that courage. I do, that there's when we won it at Reser when I was at Marist in 2007. She was little, right? So she's on my shoulders. We're walking all over the place and high five and everybody. And she was probably on my shoulders for 20 minutes because she weighed like 30 pounds. And then at Union, she came down. She was on the field and came down at the end. She's like, we need to do the shoulder picture. And I'm like, girl, mold. I don't know if this might be an injury. So we figured it out. She got up there and we took the picture. And I think that was one of my, it wasn't the last time I went out with her, obviously, but it was a pretty cool moment, and it was a fun comparison photo. Yeah. Right. And that was a fun night. And then she rode back. I ended up not riding back with the team that night. My wife and then Gab, and they let me. I usually always rode back with the team, but they were, my guys were like, no, you need to go with Gab. And I was super grateful for that. So we got that 3-hour drive from Tacoma, or 2-hour drive from Tacoma, and just had a really nice time. And then when we got there, all the coaches were at our house, and we celebrated that night because it was, it was a fun night. But that for me was one of the last, just as a special moment, right? Because it took us back to the beginning. And so it was a lot of fun.
good to have those memories to look back on for sure. So.
Sure. And that's why randomly, if you ever see me crying sometime when I'm thinking about something like that, and it's a good thing. It's a great thing. Like we need to remember those times.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for your vulnerability on that, Coach. Much appreciated. I'm sure it's going to be impactful for others that, have had similar situations as well. So, so moving forward, then we end up going to COVID happens pretty shortly thereafter, and you have a 5-1 season, and I know the struggle of trying to keep kids engaged and that whole deal. And like you, I think you had a very talented team that year. We did as well, and then a couple more years after that before the move comes back here. But tell me a little bit about your experience with COVID, and then moving back to Glacier Peak for the role that you're in now, and are you looking to get back into coaching again at some point? How much does Coach Keck let you be around, and or with two beautiful little girls that you and your wife Kelly have adopted, maybe it's being around home more, right? So tell me a little bit about COVID, and then where you're at now.
So yeah, COVID was rough, buddy. I know you know about it. You dealt with it, and I think the hard part is different areas did it so differently than you would. And we ended up, and when I look back on it after talking to everybody, we were kind of allowed to do a little bit more, not maybe from a practice standpoint, but we had 6 games and we got to play. I got to travel up to Marysville, and our district let me do that and play against Carson at the end, and that was super cool. It was kind of like a culminating event for this group of young men. But boy, it was hard, wasn't it? I mean, just trying to figure out how to run practice and figure out how to do this, and just eat or getting a workout session in, and you got like stuff over like 300 yards where you've got all these different stations set up, and I mean, trying to coach on Zoom, and I mean, that's when I got pretty good at Zoom. Is you'd have 100 kids, we do breakout rooms and positioning meetings, and it was hard. It was so hard, and it was so not fair to those kids. We just so not fair to them, and I feel so bad about what we did for them. But I was also grateful that we got what we got. I mean, they could have. I mean, I just remember having to drive down. I remember having to go down to the district bus barn with the Department of Health and say, "I need you to show me where these kids were sitting." I'm like, "Well, I sent you pictures already where they were sitting, and the windows were down, and they had masks on." I'm like, "Well, these 2 kids got COVID." I'm like, "I don't know what to tell you. Like, here's where everybody was." Like, that's how I'm spending my day right now.
Yeah.
So that was really hard, and I know the same thing. It was really hard. But I think when we got to that spring, we were just so grateful to do anything. And gosh, we were really good. And I know you guys were too. We were really good. And we ended up losing to us in Skyview. It was probably the only time I've yelled at officials in my life, but because they had 12 on the field in the last play and they didn't call it. Kais knows it. Kais, I know you know that. So anyway, the bottom line is we were really good. And I think I feel bad because those kids should have gotten to experience what every other high school kid that's played football in their life that makes a run gets to experience, right? And those kids, they'd have been sophomores when we won it in 18. And so they knew what it was about. They knew what it was supposed to look like. And to not get that, I'm sure was really, really hard, empty stands and, but I was grateful for what we got, and the kids made the most of it. And I think that, I mean, I just think it's another opportunity to mentor and say, guys, you don't always get, life ain't always about what you want. Sometimes it's just what's handed to you, and you got to figure out how to make it the best that it can be and make it work for you. They've all had to do it since then in their life in some other way. So it was good. I was grateful for it. COVID was tough. And to be honest with you, I probably could have walked away then. I was tired, like we all were, right? We were all really, that was hard. And then to get done and then be like, and we're starting back up with spring ball in 3 weeks now. And so that was really hard. And I think had it not been for that, there's a decent chance I would have stepped down after that. But I didn't feel like we could have, as the athletic director, I didn't feel like we could have put, how are we going to hire somebody? How are we going to give whatever that next group is? How am I going to give them what they deserve, which is a full off season to get your staff ready and do all the things you need to do. So I didn't. I coached, and that was a good group again. And then I stepped down as the AD for that last year and just was the coach, and I taught in the classroom again. And that was fun to do that, to kind of reconnect with kids in the classroom. But we had adopted those girls, and I was like, I need to figure out Ruby and Charlie. I need to be able to be home at night. And actually, we had actually 3 under 2. It's a long story, but these girls are relatives of my wife's. So we fostered them first. Mom had some addiction issues, and still does. And so they were in foster care, and someone said, would you consider, well, my wife said, would you consider this? And I was like, gosh, I mean, we've talked about it, but Cabby passed away like 5 months ago. This is hard. And so anyway, we did it, but it took like 10 months to get him. And so in the interim, we ended up taking in this little Chook boy who was just the cutest thing you'd ever, this little Sousa. And he ended up passing away. He had some serious health issues that were, going to affect him for his whole life. He had a white blood cell issue. And so at one point we had 3 under 2. And I'm like, Kel, I need to be more present for you, right? Like the AD thing, football was, football's 7 days a week, 12 or 14 hours a day for 4 months.
Yeah.
But then there's some downtime and you can be home. And with the AD thing, it was like, man, I still got to be at basketball 3 nights a week and wrestling and whatever. So soccer. And so I stepped back and went back in the classroom, and so I could be home more. And was also a good thing. And that was Adam Matheson. I talked about that because I was going to quit coaching football and then just do the AD thing. And he's like, what do you like more? It's always good to have friends that remind you of who you are and why you do things and whatever. So he did. And I said, I like football more. Obviously, I think I do like football more. And so I did that and went back, and that was a lot of fun. And we had a great time. And yeah, I mean, I think my last year we went 3 and 6. But you know what? It was one of the most fun jobs one of the most fun teams I ever coached. And we had gotten to the point where we couldn't find games. And so the only teams that would play us would be teams like O'Day or Yelm or somebody that was like, hey, we're making a run at a state championship. And we were good, but we weren't that good. And we gave them a fight. And we said, I mean, it's like, hey, anytime, anywhere, anyone, whatever, we'll play you. But they had better Jimmys and Joes than we did at some point. And so they got us, and it was hard.
All right. Well, hey, we are in part 2 of our conversation because the power went out toward the end of our conversation. And it was the night that the Mariners were playing Game 6. Power went out. I had to run to a restaurant to go watch the game. And I was wearing a Mariners hat for that night. And unfortunately, since that time, they've lost Game 6 and 7. But the Seahawks won this weekend. So
the only consolation.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and pick up kind of where we left off, and a couple more questions after that. We'll wrap this thing up. So Coach Rosenbach, again, thanks for taking the time to get together a second time. And kind of the last thing I'd ask before the power went out, maybe you flipped the switch on me, was, hey, are you ever thinking about getting back into coaching? I know at one point earlier you'd said, hey, coaching AD, what do you like more? Adam Matheson had asked you that. And at that time you'd said, hey, it was coaching. And now you're doing the AD thing. So you ever getting the bug, the itch to do
well,
that?
To preface, to put some context into it, by the way, I just talked to him today, by the way. He called me. I was doing lunch duty. It was very exciting. Yeah. And he called and wanted to talk about screens. So I got fired up. We talked about screens. And I called this guy, Duke Smolin, who coached with me and now is coaching with Adam. And I said, I think we got him. I think we've broken him down. He's ready for screens. Go get him. Anyway, so that was kind of fun. Just wanting to talk to Adam. But no, I did. I talked to Adam, and it was like right out of COVID. Like we just got done with COVID and be doing not only coaching, but then I was doing the AD thing. So I'd go to a softball game and have, I'm trying try not to throw any communities under the bus. Did you say hi, Rude? Okay, you guys say hi to Coach Teeter again? Yeah. So anyway, like going to a softball game and I'm getting yelled at for asking somebody to put their mask on, or telling cheerleaders they can't come to this event because we can only have 20 people in the building or whatever. Right. So it was like, it was not a great time to be an athletic director or a football coach, honestly, or probably most other things in the Western world. But so at the time, certainly it was like, yeah, gosh, I think I still like football more at this point. Right. You tired after that, how it was. And so we did it for another year, and it ended up being a really good decision on my part because the district changed their model and was going to eliminate athletic directors the next year. So it actually was kind of happenstance. I think somebody was looking out for me, and and got me into a good place. And they took great care of me. And I really enjoyed my year back in the classroom. I had like all weights classes, so it was awesome. Clearly, I didn't do a good job because we didn't win enough games, but I mean, it was good. It was a fun year. I really enjoyed it, and I had a great relationship with those kids. It was kind of the one thing that I really missed about not being in the classroom was losing that relationship with students. You just, and when you're coaching, you got those kids, but now it's like I got to go out of my way to try to find and build these relationships with students. So I wouldn't say I'd never get back into it. We never close doors fully, but I'm really happy where I am right now. I have a great community. Glacier Peak's a great place to be, great staff, great support, enjoying my time with my daughters and my wife and my grandbaby on the way and all that kind of stuff. But yes, my adult children as well. I should throw them in too. They're not as much fun as the little ones.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying never. I'm pretty good right now, but you never know, right? You never know if we get that itch again. And I think I already asked you that question. And you wait for an opportunity that you feel like is it interests you, like there's something about it, whether it's just a one-horse town or like I've truly never coached in a one-horse town before. And so that would be an interesting and to me a really appealing draw. Or just feel like if you can have an impact, right? Like a place that you feel like there's some skill set that I have that they're missing for whatever reason, and maybe I can help that group, and obviously I'd have a great time as well. So never say never. I'm good now, but you never know. You never know. I might walk out onto a field one of these days and then see you standing there across from me, and then we'll say, yeah, we knew this was coming. So you never know.
Or maybe we have to work together. Who knows?
Absolutely. Yeah. That would be that is the other thing I've talked about with friends. Like I would get back into coaching, but I just want to coach with people I like and my friends, and I don't even care. Like let's just all get together and just go divvy it up and have fun together. Yeah,
so. Absolutely. Now we just mentioned Coach Matheson, and earlier you had mentioned that there was a story that you wanted to come back to at the end about him from that. You played each other in some close games and so forth. Do you recall what that story was?
I will say this. He and I did get put on probation together. It was kind of a fun story. Actually, I was thinking about this on the drive home. I was like, man, that group in 2018 and 2017, 2018, those kind of 2-year window. I mean, our schools were right next to each other when he was at Mountain View and I was at Union, and we had a really good year that made a run that year, and they made it to the semifinals. And so it's kind of cool. I remember us talking about it going, you realize there's 2 public schools within like 5 miles of each other that are playing for the 3A and 4A semifinals. That's pretty crazy. And it wasn't like we were in places where you get all these kids coming from different areas transferring in, or whatever. It's like, we're in a bit of an isolated area where there was a little bit of transferring in the Vancouver area, but still you're talking about all Vancouver kids. And to think about, he had some really good players. And so coaching on Thanksgiving is like, that's the deal, right? That's what you were like, okay, we're going to practice on Thanksgiving morning one day. And so, we both got to do it. And so it was that Thursday morning, and we said, hey, let's go down and kind of do our pregame practice. They were short ones, but we said, let's go do it. You want to go first? You want to go second? Whatever. We don't care. We thought it was cool, but we thought, hey, let's do something. Speaking of that, 2 public schools within 5 miles in the 3A and 4A state semifinals at the time. And we said, let's do something, we'll take a little video, whatever. And then he's like, hey, it'd be fun to do like a fake play with each other. So I thought that'd be cool. So I think we went first. We went first. And then they kind of warmed up at one end while we were finishing up at the other. And then he's like, are you ready? So we ran a couple fake plays. Like I think I lined up in the wing tee because he was still doing a lot of wing tee stuff back then. And I think I did like a tackle. Nobody tackled anybody. Obviously, it was like we're not like we literally like nobody fall down. There's 2 days before or a day before playing in the biggest game of you guys' life. Let's not do anything stupid to get hurt. So they're being smart, so I think we threw like a tackle eligible. Just threw the tackle down, and then I think Adam ran a play. I don't know, speed option or something unimaginative, which I feel like I told him, I was like, Adam, you got to come up with something better than that. Yeah. And then we got together and the 2 teams, and we did a little video, and we're saying Happy Thanksgiving to every public schools in Vancouver, and it was really neat. It was a cool deal. We thought it was a cool deal. And then the next morning, we got a phone call from Kale, who's our boss, Pyland, Kale, and he said, hey, you guys scrimmage yesterday? I'm like, no, what are you talking about? we scrimmaged yesterday. You're a football coach, Kale. We did not scrimmage the day before the semifinals. Yeah. He said, well, somebody posted a video of you guys running plays against each other. And I don't know if it was either Monty at O'Day or it was Gary at Puyallup, but they were not happy about us scrimmaging and having an unfair advantage. We're like, Kale, come on. So anyway, we did the whole thing. And I think he had to meet with Mick. And then what happened was, so we played that weekend. I think it was Saturday. So we played on Saturday. And we played first, and then we were done. And then Adam played after us, and we won, thankfully. And then they unfortunately lost. They battled, man. They battled Monty. It was like 10-6 or something crazy, right? I think they did a great job. And then the next day, or I don't know if Kale came to us or I think he might have made us come to him on that Monday and was like, "Hey, I got some bad news. You're both on probation. Here's your letters of reprimand. You're on probation until the end of the season, until the end of your season, right?" So Adam was like, "Well, sweet. I was on probation for -2 days. Awesome." Because, they were done. And so anyway, it was just one of those things where it's a funny story. And Mick was great about it. I don't blame Mr. Hoffman. And obviously it wasn't something we did in any way, trying to get an advantage. We thought it was something fun and funny to do for a community that honestly, they weren't real friendly, right? Anyway, it was a fun time, and I'm glad that it's almost funnier, and I'm almost glad we did get the probation thing because it makes for a great story, and for us to be, he and I were pretty adversarial for a couple of years, and programs, didn't play well in the sandbox, and for us to be able to do that and share that moment was pretty cool. So yeah.
Well, he told me that he turned you in.
He probably did. He probably did, and then he said, "I wasn't even out practice, so don't get me." That was my assistant, put him on probation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, All right. Now, there's a word that you threw out there a couple times that, hey, we're public schools right here in 3A and 4A. And we didn't have a lot of transfers. There's a little bit, in the Vancouver area and so forth. And, that's a big topic. There was just an amendment that was passed. So I'm going to open a can of worms here. So there's a lot of discussion going on. And, 4 weeks out, if you transfer and we're into that season where we've seen it, and there's some schools that have benefited by having a number of transfers come in, and the other thing is, and they're not necessarily totally connected, but people talk about it. You've been a guy who's coached at a private Catholic school and at public schools, so talk to me a little bit about public versus private, and some people consider things like, hey, separate playoffs and those kind of things, and a separate issue, but some people connect them. The transfer rule and what you see going on, and what ideas do you have for that, and just thoughts surrounding those topics there.
Public versus private. I think we do a pretty good job. I don't think you could have separate playoffs. I just don't think I don't think we have enough schools, and they're too spread out from a private school standpoint. Same was true in Oregon. I think, obviously, I think a multiplier is good if you have an all boys or an all girls school, that kind of a thing. Or even if you don't, you need to probably have a multiplier. Obviously, I think when you have a 50-mile radius or whatever that is, I think that's a big deal. I don't know that. I mean, you were in a moderately rural area, and I don't think you had a 50-mile radius where your kids were coming from. So that's a pretty big deal to me. And again, being the guy that was a recipient of it, but we were the only private school within 50 miles for sure. I mean, the next one was probably in Salem that had a program and stuff.
On the 50-mile radius. So I used to be pretty fired up about it. And, I graduated from Linden Christian. I went to a private school. So I coached middle school at King's this year. Right. And so I fully support private schools and have benefited from them myself going to one. But the 50-mile radius is a pretty big deal. I one time years ago put together this chart and said, if you go from Linden Christian to Archbishop Murphy to the one in Tacoma, Bellarmine Prep, and Seton Catholic, those 4 schools covered the entire I-5 corridor minus a little tiny bit by Chehalis, right? So WF West is in this little pocket where they didn't have any private schools that could get to their guys. But those 4 schools covered the entire, from the Canadian border down into Oregon,
Crazy. No, it's true. And it is an advantage. You know what it is, but I think there's also disadvantages. I mean, I think facility wise, a lot of those private schools don't have the same facility. My daughter went to Central Catholic in Portland, so I understand. And they didn't even have a practice field for a long time. They had to bust a practice for a long time.
As does O'Day. O'Day still has to bust to their fields.
I think that you don't have facilities. You a lot of times financially, it's hard to keep coaches that are educators. I think that was a big deal for me when I left the first time. Obviously, we talked about that. Our captain was leaving, our leader was leaving, and I didn't feel great about that at Marist because I didn't know who they'd bring in, and they ended up bringing in somebody who was fine. That would have been fine, but that was scary. But really more importantly is like I had aspirations to have a family and not live in the Marist residence for the rest of my life with the priest. It's perfect, honey. Good, great job. Go find some more. So yeah, I mean, and I think that's gotten better, and I think there's some places where they might even, maybe pay more. Obviously, there's different deals when you're not in the education system from retirement, all that kind of stuff, and that all plays a part. But I also think, not having, a lot of those private schools don't have any type of youth program. The first time they ever get a hold of see their kids is ninth grade. Well, that's a disadvantage. I mean, you talk about any of the great kind of the dynasties in Washington or programs that have had really sustained long-term success. Bellevue obviously comes up, and that maybe be a different conversation, but they have an elite youth program. I mean, they do. Those kids know how to run their system when they get there. Adam, like we talked about now, is at Camas High School after John left, and doing a great job there. But that's such a huge thing that when I was at Union, we didn't have a middle school that fed directly into Union. So it was shared with either Mountain View or Evergreen or Heritage. And we did the thing that they do up north there, where we moved middle school football into the spring. And so we were able to get our high school coaches into those middle schools and help. And that was the first time we actually ever that was my last year or two there. We got some people. So it was, it's hard to build that continuity when you have programs, the Camas kids are running that system all the way up through, and the kids that are going to all the Evergreen or even all the Vancouver schools, they're running kind of this hodgepodge, different deal of different stuff. And then they got to learn a new language basically when they get to high school. So, well, I think there's advantages clearly. And and I don't think there's a private school coach, and I can say that because I was one, that didn't think, there was an advantage to a degree, but there was also some difficulties and some things that weren't advantages that you had to overcome. So, I think that for me, as long as we're doing a good job with that transfer piece, right? And before that was always the thing. Well, this guy transferred here. They transferred from a public school to a private school, and whatever the rule was that made it be eligible, their parents are going to separate or whatever that was. And so just as long as that's being done the right way and people aren't taking advantage of that rule, I think the 40% thing is actually going to help in that regard. I mean, I think you're going to have more transfers. I do. I just think you'll have less people lying about it, or just kind of like, hey, though, this is the story we need to tell. Well, no, I think we're just going to do this. I actually thought we would in our area would have more, and just with ADs that I've talked to, and we've had a few kind of sprinkled across a few sports, but I mean, nothing crazy, and for the most part, they're very okay with that, whatever that penalty, that 40% penalty. That hasn't been a big deal. I mean, there's been a little bit of, I don't want to do that. And then when they really kind of weigh it out and think, well, I can take my shot with an appeal, which you probably don't have a great shot of winning, and then you're not eligible at all for a year, or you can just say, okay, well, I'm going to take my one transfer and take my 40% and go. When you think about it, if you play for if you're playing for a team that struggles athletically, which again, this is going to make that even worse. I mean, it is, but it was already getting worse, but people were not being truthful, to a degree, where now I think at least you're going to have, I think that deception will be less, if that makes sense.
Right.
But I think that you have people that just, they'll come in, they'll take their 40% and say, if I'm playing for this team, we're going to go into the playoffs and make a little run. I was only going to play 9 or 10 games in a football season anyway, but now I'm going to end up at a program that has a chance to make the playoffs, which, never been to before in my life. And so I'm going to play the same number of games. They're just going to be really impactful, meaningful games. Is that good for high school athletics? I don't know. I just know what a high school kid's thinking, right? Like, I can play 10 games. I'm going to get blown out by 40 in 9 of them, or I can sit 4 games, play at least 6, and maybe maybe up to 10, and they're going to be super impactful, meaningful games. And so I get why I get it. I get why they want to make the move. I understand why they had to do the 40%. I think it was an unsustainable number of lawsuits and all the different things that were going on with people, moving. And, I mean, Roosevelt's obviously a prime example, unfortunately, for those guys. They made some poor choices there. So I think if this is going to make it better, I think there's still some stuff to tweak, like with anything else. I think they got to figure out the June thing. Because that was actually the one kind of thing is like kids they're ready to roll. They've been accepted for next fall. And there's all this, all the June stuff starts, right? You got basketball, you got football, you got soccer, you got volleyball. Everybody's doing stuff. And we're saying, no, you got to wait till your school year's over. By the time your school's over on the 24th, you're done. You've gone to camp and it's over. And that's okay. It's okay. It's just something that I don't know that was clarified. Let me slide over a little bit. That was clarified as well as it could have been, or maybe it wasn't something we realized would be an issue. But I think that'll get fixed. I think they'll clean those little pieces up, and I think the system they got is going to be better than what we have. So,
I agree. I think good comments on all those. One thing that we had proposed as a coaches association was maybe it's 25% if you transfer after your freshman year, and then 50, and then 75, and make it progressive. So, if you've poured 3 years into a kid in your program, he's a team captain and leader. To lose that kid as a senior somewhere else, that's pretty impactful to a lot.
And I think I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I would offer an alternate opinion. My first year at Marist. So I just remember it was the night before doubles where I was going to start. And I get this phone call on my cell. I'm like, I don't recognize this number. Hello? Hey coach, this is Tyler Sears. And I want to transfer to Marist. And I'm like, Tyler Sears, like the Tyler Sears, who's arguably one of the best players in the league, but plays for a really poor school. I'm like, and I just thought it was one of my kids. I'm like, shut up, Dustin, whatever. And I hang up. I get a phone call back. No, coach, it really is Tyler Sears. I'm like, what are you talking about? You want to transfer? He's like, yeah, we're moving. I'm going to move in. I'm moving to Eugene. We're going to get an apartment, whatever. And they ended up moving, and that was good because they would have needed to, obviously. And Oregon rules are obviously a little different, but ultimately, this is why I say this point. Is once it all got done, I mean, I just directed him to our admissions people and said, here's what you got to do. Oh yeah, good job. I said, here's what you got to do. We're taking pictures on the phone now. I'm going to have about 600 pictures at the end of this of probably of some of you and whatever else. But I said,
I want NIL money.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I said, Tyler, what was the trigger for you? I mean, he was a 3-year starter. I mean, he was that place, and he had played everything: quarterback, running back, receiver, whatever. I mean, he was just a do-it-all guy. He was a really hard worker. I mean, you could tell, like when you played against them, you're like, this guy's leaving it out here, man. He's bleeding for this town, and he wants to turn it. He wants to be the one to turn it. And I said, what was it? What? Why? Like, you did this for 3 years. He said, Coach, I got tired of showing up at the weight room, and there'd be 3 guys in there. And I'd call them up. I got tired of calling them and saying, oh, we're at the river. We're getting so-and-so. Come on down. Nobody wanted to do the work. And he said, Coach, I just got tired of being the only one. And our coaches couldn't do it. We couldn't get him to compete. And I just remember after the first practice, I watched him. We were doing gassers or whatever we're doing. And I know he's used to being first in every single thing he's ever done in his life. And he is struggling to come in 6th or 7th place right now. And he's just looking around like, what? And he came up to me after practice. He's like, Coach, that's the best practice I've ever been a part of in my athletic career. Just, and not like the structure and the drills. It was like, no, the competition and the kids that are willing to work and kids that have put the same amount of time in. Oh, that's a nice photo of you. Look at that. That's a good one. I put the work in. So for me, I would say I agree with where you're coming from in that regard. But then there's also the other side of the coin too, where it's like, I've given everything I have to this place for 3 years, and I can't get anybody to get on the train with me. And I'm tired of fighting the battle. And I just want to go somewhere where people value it the same way that I value it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's just a different perspective. But
I'll offer another thing on that young man you mentioned, because I read a lot of articles and things prior to our conversation. And one of the arguments against people transferring in, I think even stated in the WSFCA, is you don't want to take opportunities away from kids that are in that district, right? Yeah. When I read when I read the articles for your team, there were people that were on your team mentioning him as a motivator for them. They wanted to go win it for him, right? And so they didn't view him that way. They loved him and loved the way he worked, and so they were doing things for him. They didn't have anything against him being there. The one other thing that we talked about that the Texas Association does that I think would be a really good addition is immediately give somebody back all of their 40% or whatever if they transfer back to their home school, right? If they're like, hey, I messed up, I want to go back, I don't want to have give them immediate access. And I think that would reduce lawsuits and those kind of things as well.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing. I really do. I think that actually I mean, that situation has come up, I know, at least in our general area, probably twice already. I'm sure it's happened in quite a few other places statewide, but it's like, yeah, these guys, they went over there and they did it. And they're like, you know what? This is a big mistake. I made a huge mistake. And they're talking about gym. We're talking about them like practicing and going to an open gym in July or whatever, right? They just realized that, you know what, I can't do it. My friends, my community, like I made a mistake. And it's like, no, you're ineligible. Sorry. So that's, yeah, I think that'd be a good one. I'd be before that. And I think, like you said, we'll continue to tweak over the next couple of years. I think we'll refine and make it better, but I think it's I think it's the right path. I don't think you weren't going to get away from the transfers. And I think now you're just not making families or whatever, you're letting them do things above board and giving them an opportunity to compete. So
yeah, great. All right. Final thoughts, anything that maybe it's advice that you want to give to some younger coaches or ADs, or just kind of your final thoughts to close out on, Coach?
Trust your coaches, hire good people and trust them. I don't care if they don't know anything about the offense or defense you want to run. If you think they are great teachers and they are kid magnets and they care about the development of young people, hire them. They will figure out the X's and O's that you want them to teach, and they will be way better than somebody who's like, oh, I've coached the air raid for 15 years. Great. You don't like kids. Like you don't even want to be out here. It's just way better to hire those kind of people. I mean, have fun, man. It goes fast. I'm speaking for a guy who just turned 50 and has been fortunate enough to, be coaching or have been able to coach for almost 25 years and be a head coach for almost 20. It's like, I took some stuff way too seriously early in my career that I was like, you look back at it, you're like, what are you doing, man? These are like 16-year-old kids. It's like, have some fun with them and just enjoy the moment with them. That's what they're going to remember. And that's what you're going to remember is those really fun moments or the hard moments. Some of them are hard moments, but just don't take yourself too seriously and just enjoy every step of it. Right. Like I know you're the same way. I don't remember very many. There's a couple games that we won that were really big games that I really remember, obviously. But I think, the thing what you remember is the journey, and it's going to fall camp or going to a summer camp and then doing doubles and whatever the culture stuff you do with your program. I feel like that's what I always remember way more. The time we did a creed that the kids made that had all the things they believe in. And I remember sitting in the meeting in the classroom with them. We met 4 or 5 times before we finalized it. And I remember it was just so, I remember that way more than I remember any 5 practices or whatever that I ever had. So enjoy that stuff. I think just be courageous, man. You can't second guess yourself. Just be brave and just do what you believe is right. It doesn't matter what the guy in the stands thinks or what your basketball coach thinks or what some dad thinks. It's like they hired you to be the head coach, be the head coach, trust your coaches, and just swing for the fence and go have fun and let it rip. So there's no regrets at the end. If it's going to sink, you want to be at the wheel, right? Like I don't want to be able to look around and be like, well, if I wish I had done what I wanted to do, we'd have been fine. But no, I did it. It didn't work. So whatever. I'll try something else next time. So
yeah,
it's a great profession, buddy. It's a great profession. We were fortunate to be in it. And I'm hopeful that I got some young guys that I know that I'm done coaching with, but I think I've been bugging them and I think they're about to turn into the profession and I think they'll be great. So I'm excited to watch them.
Hey, great advice. I'm going to add a couple bits to the first part you said there about hiring great people. I hired some guys that were great football people, right? And that's great to add them in. But the first thing always had to be, are they a good person? Are they going to build character? And 2 examples of people I hired. One, I hired a guy that everybody just called Hutch. And I saw him as a substitute teacher and kids were just around him and he was interested in the program. And he'd played some high school ball and so forth at Marysville, but wasn't, ready to be a position coach or anything. But we hired him as our academic coach, and he would stay and tutor kids after school. So anyway, he ended up becoming a really good linebacker coach and so forth, and then helped with softball and with wrestling, and like every sport wanted him. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2020. The hole that he left in our community was so huge because, I mean, he just loved kids. They loved him. And then Dawn Taylor, one of her sons is playing at Eastern as a quarterback, and the other one's a starting running back at Central. I hired her as our director of football operations. She'd been, involved in the youth program and then team mom. And then after her kids graduate, I'm like, I've got to keep her around. So director of football operations, she's still doing that for the program now, and just a great person. And when you find great people, you got to hire them. And
you keep them whatever it takes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's great. You got to have like an IT guy. You got to have your IT guy. You got to have your academic guy. And then just the other, I just thought this is also advice that I'd say. You always want to have a police officer and a fireman on your staff. So the firemen especially get that first aid stuff. They can run the show, but it's always good to have somebody like that on staff. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, Coach, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to staying in touch, and best of luck with the rest of your year.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. A lot of fun. Take care, guys.